All right, good evening, everyone. This is the September 24th, 2018 Westminster City Council meeting. As always, there are flags in both the front and the back of the room. I will ask you to please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Parker, would you take the roll, please?
Atchison.
Here.
Byrd. Here. DeCambra. DeMott.
Here.
Pinter.
Here.
Seitz.
Here.
Scully.
Here.
First item on the agenda was consideration of the minutes of the preceding meeting for minutes of September 10th. Ms. Scully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City Council approve the minutes of the meeting of September 10th, 2018 as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda would be a move for the excuse of Councilor DeCambra, as we have already approved that she is on maternity leave, but we will acknowledge that she is excused from tonight's meeting. I would entertain a motion to such at this time.
Move to excuse that City Council excuse the absence of Mayor Pro Tem DeCambra.
Have a second? Ms.
Second.
Scully? Excuse me.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Next item on the agenda will be presentations. Councilor Seitz, if you would, please, Community Planning Month.
And Andrew Spurgeon and anyone from his team that's going to be receiving the award, Rita, you can come down.
We also have some planning commissioners.
Oh, wonderful. I'd like to have all the planning commissioners come down. I'm gonna last minute switch, so. So it's absolutely my pleasure to announce National Community Planning Month and make this proclamation. In Westminster, we benefit from a very high quality of life, and wonderful cities don't just happen, they are planned. And whether it is our dedicated staff that work very hard to make sure that we have the right mix of uses, that we plan for the long-term health and sustainability of this community, or if it's the citizens that dedicate their time and talents to making sure that the fingerprint of our citizens are on all of the plans that we approve, I want to say thank you. I'd like to let Andrew and Rita, if you have anything you'd like to say about planning about this month.
Well, it is planning month. We have a new planning manager, Rita, who can speak for herself, but it's been an exciting time for us as we're kicking off the update to the comprehensive plan and looking at our design standards and bringing them more into alignment with council's current goals, the strategic plan. And several of us will be going to a conference next week in Keystone, and continue to develop our skills.
The only thing I would add is this is a very exciting time to be in Westminster. There's a lot of different planning projects going on. We have a very exciting and energized staff and excellent planning commission. And we really enjoy doing service to the community and making sure that we have a fun and exciting and sustainable environment for you all to live in.
Can all of the commissioners please introduce themselves? Starting,
I'm Mike Bitsu, finishing my 12th year on the Planning Commission.
I'm Tracy Calling.
I'm Rick Mayo, and I'm about 12 years too.
I'm Jim Boschert, and I've been on the Planning Commission for 20 years, and I'm now the chairman.
Well, thank you all for your service, and would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Karen, I work on the staff. Andrew and Rita, she keeps us organized.
Rita's our new planning director. Would you like to introduce yourself and give a little bit of background?
Sure, Rita McConnell. I've been here 2.5 months now. I was recently in Arvada for 5 years, so kind of close neighbors, but again, I'm really excited to be here. There's just so many great things going on. I've worked in city planning since 1987, and I think the most fun I'm going to have is the next several years here.
Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, suburbs, counties, boroughs, townships, rural areas, and other places. And whereas community planning and plans can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work, live, play. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. Whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories. And whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institutes, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorse National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of our settlements and environment. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of the Planning Commission and other citizen planners who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Westminster. And whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional community and regional planners of the city of Westminster, and extend our gratitude for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, I, Herb Atchison, Mayor of the City of Westminster, on behalf of the entire City Council and staff, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Community Planning Month. So, thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Okay. Take two photos, I count to three both times. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Not
Hello, good evening. I am here to present the proclamation on Fire Prevention Month. So we have a full room tonight. Thank you for coming down. I've got our Public Information Officer and our Fire Marshal. You guys are experts. Thank you for coming. They gave me a whole series of notes, but I can tell you, as a graduate of Sherry's Citizen Fire Academy, that there's no one better on fire prevention. So can I just hand it over and ask you to talk about what we're doing this month in the city with regard to fire prevention?
So this year, like we are every year, we go into every single third grade classroom in the city of Westminster, 22 schools, just so you know that. And this year, we're playing a game. It's an interactive game that we're going to play. It's called Battling the Fire. It's a really fun game. And last week, we had our Station 6 open house, and October 6th, we are having our Station 4 open house from 12 to 3, so I hope to see all of you there. And this year with NFPA, we always kind of follow what the theme is, and it's look, listen, and learn. So I have some of these flyers in the back, and if you guys can take a look at these, they've really changed things. They want people to look when they're in crowds, when you guys go on vacation, when you're in the movie theater, a lot of different things that we tend not to focus on. So they have a lot of information on that, and then basic information with our smoke alarms, 2 ways out of your home, making sure you have a plan with your family, Edith, exit drills in the home. And the one big thing that I know Emma was talking about is we have a Citizen Fire Academy, and it's once a year, and it starts in March and it ends in May. It's every Thursday from 6 to 10, and it's an awesome class because you're going to learn what the Westminster Fire Department does for you as a community. And you really get to walk in the footsteps of what a firefighter does every day in their daily life. So hopefully you guys will want to look at that. It'll be in the city website in December.
And you get to cut a car apart with the jaws of life, so that's pretty cool. So if you ever wanted to do that. And Fire Marshal Host, do you have any comments? Or?
The only thing to add was that normally here Fire Prevention Week, and in Westminster we designate all of October as Fire Prevention Month just to extend that fire prevention message out further.
So I know you all will be going home and looking at every room in your house and seeing if you have 2 exits and what does that look like. So in that spirit, this is our proclamation. Whereas in 2017, the United States had an estimate of 3,400 civilian fire fatalities with nearly 15,000 civilian injuries and over $23 billion in property loss due to fire. And whereas in 2017, the City of Westminster Fire Department responded to 11,558 emergency alarms, including 44 building fires. And the city had 1,087,525 in building and content loss due to structure fires. And whereas in 2017, the City of Westminster had no citizen who died from fire, but did have 7 citizens injured from fire. And whereas fire prevention should be of concern to every Westminster citizen. And whereas the City of Westminster Fire Department depends on joint commitment and effort involving all citizens as well as firefighters to promote safety. And whereas the Westminster Fire Department has established a public education program that works to educate citizens on the hazards of fire and life safety. And whereas the National 2018 Fire Prevention Week theme, Look, Listen, Learn, Be Aware, Fires Can Happen Anywhere, effectively serves to remind all of us of the simple actions we can take to stay safe from fire during Fire Prevention Month and year-round. Now, therefore, I, Herb Atchison, Mayor of the City of Westminster, and on behalf of the entire City Council and staff, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Fire Prevention Month in the City of Westminster, and urge all citizens to heed the important safety messages of Fire Prevention Month 2018, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the City of Westminster's Fire Department. Signed this 24th day of September 2018. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, 2 shots, count to 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation that we're going to repeat from 2 weeks ago. And this has to do with the proposed changes in our water and sewer rates that will be handled later on tonight. This is not a repeat of the same venue that we had before. This is strictly a repeat of the presentation of the material. Once that's done, then we will go into our normal citizen communication, just as we always do. And any person who has an item they want to bring forward to council will be allowed to talk at that time for a period of up to 5 minutes. Since we have no other public hearing scheduled tonight, any item you want to talk about at the time your name is called is what you can talk about. I have so far about 20 people. I understand there's some more listed in the back. So get comfortable, because each person gets up to 5 minutes. That's roughly about 2 hours I already have sitting up here. And we will call on each person. You do not need to repeat your address. I have that up here on the sheet. But I do ask that for the purpose of the microphone, you repeat your name when you come up in the order that we've called you. So for the time being, staff, let's go. Okay.
Can we have just a minute? There's an issue with the screen.
Okay, guys.
Good evening. I'm Max Kirschbaum, Director of Public Works and Utilities. I'm accompanied by Christine Gray, who is the Business Operations Coordinator for Public Works and Utilities. As the mayor said, this is a repeat of a presentation that we did 2 weeks ago. And tonight you'll see the items for consideration under new business items 10B and 10C. Go ahead. Thought it appropriate to start a presentation such as this with just a reminder of what our city's staff mission statement is, as well as the mission statement for our utility. For the city, it's to deliver exceptional value and quality of life through spirit. And for the utility itself, it's a responsibility that we have to our customers to provide safe, quality, compliant, reliant water and sewer services to our customers. I'd also like to start a little bit with just a broad brush of the goals and the needs of the utility. On the goal side, we do have we are interested in a financially sustainable utility, and by that, what I mean is a proper balance of revenues to meet expenditures to meet the operational and capital project needs that then in turn meet the level of service expectations demanded by our customers. Stated more simply, it's an obligation to take care of what we own in infrastructure. I'll point out at this point that it is not the goals are not driven by specific initiatives that the city may have, such as downtown Westminster or the Westminster Station, but the needs of our city as a whole. Secondly, to promote water conservation. We have achieved an estimated and verified 30% per capita decrease in water as a city over the last 35 years. But more is needed to meet both our current and our future demands before the city reaches a build-out condition as part of our water supply plan. And the third goal to address is that what we do with the utility in terms of rate and fees do need to be achieve a balance between affordability and equitability. That is, pay for what you use. On the needs side, we have ongoing operations and maintenance needs, and this includes everything from our 24/7 obligation to operate water and wastewater treatment plants to the everyday operation of the utility. We have an obligation, and the utility has a need to repair and replace its aging infrastructure. We'll talk more about that later. I'm sorry, I should have pointed out the parenthetical numbers on that side of the slide refer to the goals on the left-hand side of the slide. Again, the utility has a need for conservation. You'll hear us talk about conservation several times through this presentation, and the reason it's both a goal and a need is what we can achieve through conservation also has an effect on cost avoidance for things like water acquisition. So even though we've made good progress, there's always a continuous need for conservation. Under appropriate financing, here the point is there is a balance between the proper use of bond issuance or debt and cash that is available through either tap fees or the rates charged to our customers. And of course, I mentioned that it also needs to be affordable. That's affordable to our businesses and affordable to our residents. We'll speak more about that as we go. And finally, regulatory compliance. Much of what we do is driven by changes made to regulations promulgated at the state level in any given year. They could come in the form of regulation, or they could come in the form of changes to our permits. Okay. 2 years ago, when we made a presentation to City Council with a recommendation for rates and fees for the biennium 2017 and 2018, we made a commitment at that time that we would conduct a thorough asset inventory. We would do a condition assessment of all of those assets. We would take that information and then put it into our long-term planning process to address the needs of that infrastructure, and that we would use a third-party consultant to do a cost of service study for us as we work through the development of our rate and fee recommendations. All of those have been accomplished in the last 2 years. And since December of 2017, we've provided 10 written reports in the form of either staff reports or agenda memos to City Council. And this tonight is the 5th presentation in that series as well. So let's talk specifically right off the bat on what do the rate recommendations that we're making this evening mean to the average residential single-family customer. We use that residential single-family customer often as the best example to represent what it means to our residential customers. In this particular slide, what you see is rather than try to address the recommended change as one single number, we have divided it into what we call a low water user, an average, and a high water user. In the parentheses for each one of those categories, you see an indication among our residential customers the percentage that falls in low, average, and high. If you're interested in a number that's associated with low, average, and high, for the purposes of this presentation, the low water user is one that uses less than 36,000 gallons in a year. 10% of our residential households do that. The average water user is somewhere between 36,000 and 140,000 gallons per year. That constitutes over 77% of our residential households. High water users are those who use more than 140,000 gallons in a year. And the reason why we use 140,000 gallons, that just happens to be also the same number that a service commitment is based on. A service commitment at the time of a tap fee is 140,000 gallons by estimate. Okay. The utility has two primary sources of revenue. They are the rates, that is what is paid by residential and commercial customers, and tap fees, that is what is paid by developers as projects are built and are added to our system. Both of these are variable. They could be variable based on precipitation, based on the business climate. That is why it is a key part of financial planning is while most of our costs are fixed, most of our revenues are variable. Here again you see on the third bullet a note about the of debt. The debt is used for two primary reasons. It provides a smoothing factor to our recommendations with rates, and it also provides generational equity. Let me define generational equity. The use of debt today allows then future users, future ratepayers for that matter, to pay for those costs that we incur today on large capital projects. So we use it carefully, cautiously, strategically, and as council knows, we've had a recent rating through one of the rating agencies, Fitch. We are still at a AA+ rating. Okay. So the utility, the revenues that are in the recommendations before you this evening for both rates and tap fees are critical to funding projects both operationally and on the capital side. What you see with our operations and maintenance program, that is the operating budget. There are only minor increases in that budget year over year, and they address either price changes in commodities, or they may address things like regulatory changes. Sometimes regulatory changes also dictate an increase in staff, and that has been the case within the last 2-year biannual budget where we did have some staff increase, and we will see in this recommendation there is some staff increase in the next 2 years for those purposes. Our capital improvement program, this is the big lever in the recommendations that we give you. There's very little we can do to influence that operating budget. As I said, it changes on a minor amount, and over the last 4 or 5 years, it's averaged about 6 or 7% per year on the operating side. So where we usually see growth is on the capital project side of our budget. We have presented a water and wastewater capital improvement project, CIP, program listing to council on August 27th. And there are the listing of the projects for both 2019 and 2020. As I told you on that evening, and I'll repeat again tonight, that list is either, with one exception, is either exclusively or predominantly to take care of the infrastructure that we currently own. It's not about growth, it's about taking care of what we own today. The only exception to that, I said there's one that isn't. The first item in that listing was an item that allows us to acquire water. In this particular case, it's in 2018. It's a total of $8.5 million, and $7.0 million of that $8.5 million is to make a payment by December of 2019 to acquire what we call a downstream reservoir. So that's an agreement that we entered into many years ago. That construction will finish and that payment will be made. Other than that one single project, the rest of the projects on that list, again, are to take care of what we own. It totals $120 million worth of projects in 2019 and $16 million worth of projects in 2020. That list is, without question, only the most critical of the projects that we could bring forward to City Council. We use a term with you called the Utility Condition Index, UCI. It is essentially a measure of depreciation of the assets that we own as a utility, which is a $4 billion total of assets. Presently, the condition index on our water infrastructure assets is at about 47%. On the wastewater side, it's at about 33%, for a composite number of about 44%. In other words, they're more than half depreciated at this point in time, and 25% of those assets are already at or beyond their predicted useful lives. This slide shows a combination of expenses, revenues, and debt, and how they work together to form the budget that we have put together and the recommendations that we're making to you tonight for consideration. You can see where we have a debt issuance in 2019, and therefore it seems a bit out of proportion with 2020. That's just because that's how the debt piece of that works. Some of that may not all get spent out at the same rate in 2019, but we'll do that debt issuance in a manner with finance so that we're not making payments on projects that are not yet executed. So it will be phased in time accordingly. Let's talk for just a moment about tap fees. Tap fees are the one-time fees that developers pay as they are charged to buy into the city's water, wastewater, and irrigation system. They're based on the water side. Essentially, a water tap fee addresses the water rights and the infrastructure associated with delivering water. On the wastewater side, it's a combination of transport and treatment. The one item to note here on the wastewater side, for any project that we have that collects a tap fee that's within the sewer basin in which the sewage flows to Denver's Metro plant, which is essentially, let's say, south of 92nd Avenue, not strictly, but basically south of 92nd. A majority of that wastewater tap fee goes to Metro. It does not come to the city because that's where our wastewater is treated. It's appropriate but just to point it out that we don't see a large part of that portion of that wastewater tap fee. And then once a tap fee is paid, the development then from then on becomes a rate paying customer. So if you're interested in just what is the makeup between rates and tap fees, this slide essentially shows that the light blue box on top is the tap fee revenue. It constitutes about 25% of our annual revenues. They can and do vary from year to year, but roughly 25% per year. The other thing to point out with tap fees is that as we go forward in time, tap fees will diminish as the city approaches its build out in the 2040, 2045 timeframe. So that doesn't mean that we'll never collect tap fees again, but they will diminish in total value as a revenue as we approach build out. And at that point, then all revenue for the utility will be paid through rates. There will be little to no tap fees collected. There's always going to be some amount of tap fee collected on redevelopment, but for the most part, we plan on it diminishing greatly. So I thought it would also be helpful to provide a couple of recent actual examples, because I think some people may not be aware of what that contribution is in terms of actual dollars. So we picked out 3 typical examples that show different types of development, but these are actual numbers over the last couple of years. So a multifamily project with 196 units paid $4.8 million in tap fee, for example, is what is shown here. It's also important to point out that the city does not waive tap fees for new development. Okay. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll repeat here the components of our of the tap fee adjustment. The increase in the infrastructure tap fee component, and we'll maintain the water resources component. And the reason we are not seeking an increase to the water resources component of the tap fee at this time is that we are undergoing the initial stages of a new water supply plan. When that is complete, we'll be in a better position to recommend any change in that component of that water tap fee. We also address in this change on rates the idea of a scalable residential tap fee. That is new in this recommendation. And if I could just explain for just a quick second how that works. For a single family detached residential unit, that scalable fee will be based on the number of bathrooms and the lot size of the unit. For a multifamily type project, it's essentially based on the bedroom count. If you look in the detail of the agenda memo that you have in front of you this evening, you'll see that the total amount increases for an average of that. The component increases water and wastewater. It goes up for a single family detached home, a total of $832 to a total of, again, this is an average, but $32,190. If you look across the examples that we have in there, some are less than that average, some are more. Again, it's based on either the bedroom or the bathroom count and lot sizes as to how that's calculated. But on average, it's an increase of $832. Okay. The adjustment components to the rates that you're considering tonight, the words in bold represent 5 of 6 total adjustments. There's one category that we considered that actually doesn't result in adjustment. We said we should maintain a single wastewater rate. So I mentioned earlier that depending on whether you live north or south of 92nd Avenue determines where that wastewater flow goes, but we charge a single rate, whether it's treated at our wastewater treatment plant or the fee that we pay Metro to treat our wastewater. So that doesn't appear on here as a separate item because the recommendation is maintain it. But the key changes that you see in the rates this evening is that we are better aligning residential and commercial costs of service. The last time we did a full-blown cost of service study was in the year 2006. The years between then and now, as rate changes have been implemented, what this study showed us and what we need to bring back into adjustment is the balance between residential and commercial on rates. Secondly, it recommends that we broaden the first tier of the residential rate. The first tier reflects typically indoor water usage. Right now in 2018, that tier 1 goes from 0 to 4,000 gallons per month. The recommendation to you as part of this total integrated set is that tier 1 be broadened to go from 0 to 6,000 gallons. Again, to better accommodate most families' indoor water usage throughout the year. We'll also simplify in this recommendation the commercial water rates. The tier system is presently based on the meter size. The meter size is not a good predictor of any business's water consumption. The recommendation we've given to you is to go to a single tier and then add a second tier, which is a surcharge. So the surcharge comes into play anytime a commercial account would exceed that service commitment volume of water that they paid a tap fee for. And that seems logical that the tap fee was paid for a certain amount. If you use more than that amount, we would apply a surcharge. Then there's a way that that business then could change that to eliminate a future surcharge. They could come back in and address and adjust the tap fee that was paid so that they could avoid the continuance of a surcharge. The next one is to enhance the fixed water revenue. What I mean by that is there's one fixed portion on a water bill that is identified as the meter service fee. The meter service fee is our fixed component, and it's the only fixed component. The rest is just based on consumption. We recommend a minor change to that. Right now, it represents about 13% of that average bill. By working through our consultant and the work that they do nationwide, and because it is also helpful in working with the rating agencies when we need to have a bond issuance for debt, to over a period of time change that from a 13% fee to a 20% fee. That would be phased in. I'll show you how that affects the average bill, but it affects the average bill by just under $2 a month. The last item on there is to implement a 2,000 gallon monthly minimum called a readiness to serve fixed charge, fixed charge type component on the wastewater side of the bill. In other words, that the infrastructure and the plant are there 24 hours a day to serve our customers. That in order to meet that readiness to serve, we would charge at least a 2,000 gallon minimum per month. Two of these if you can go back just a second, two of these components, specifically the align the residential and commercial and enhance the fixed water revenues, are recommended to be phased in over an 8-year period. They would not be immediate in the first year. They would be incremental over an 8-year period. Next slide. The purpose of this slide was to just show, if you look at that bottom bar across horizontal bar labeled 2018 and 2019 is on top, it's intended to show that first that tier 1 goes from 4,000 to 6,000 gallons as reflected by just the shading in that bar. And you can see printed within each of those bars are the unit cost per 1,000 gallons for that tier in 2018 and in 2019. The vertical lines that we placed are to show the average January bill, which is around 5,000 gallons a month for the average residential customer, and what does it look like for an average July bill for the average residential customer, and where they would fall in that tier structure. In 2019, that average January bill for most people will stay within that tier 1, 6,000 gallons. The average July bill, both in 2018 and 2019, stays within the tier 2 range for the average customer. Certainly not all customers. Okay. This is just a for information type slide that essentially shows that, again, for the average residential customer, about 50% of the water consumption over the course of the year is indoor, and about 50% of it is outdoor. You can see the breakdown on the indoor side, how a normal average residential family may use that indoor part of their water consumption. So this slide, again, was as shown earlier, but bears repeating here. I'll speak to the numbers because the next slide will then take us into a rate calculator. But what you can see for that, the average monthly changes for that low, average, and high water user from 2018 to 2019, and then again from 2019 to 2020, based on the recommendations that we've given to you for 10% net increases and 10% net increase for 2018 and 2019 on water, 16% net increase and 12% increase net on wastewater for 2019 and 2020, and what that means to each one of those category users. We've placed an online bill calculator on our website a few weeks ago, and in fact, I'm going to show you the one that has been on there for the last couple of weeks. As of this afternoon, there is a new version of that calculator on there that is enhanced, that will show if your consumption is exactly the same over the next 2 years. It will calculate both your 2019 and your 2020 increases according to the numbers that you plug in. So again, just to show how it works, very simply, this is the screen that you would see when you enter that calculator. You can take, as a residential customer, you can take your most recent bill, look at the graph that's printed right on the grill, on that bill, I'm sorry. Pull the numbers off of there, plug them into each of the months, and hit the calculate button, and then you will see the analysis of what you're currently paying and what it would be proposed under the rates that we're presenting this evening. And again, it shows the average monthly increase. It does not show what it is month to month. So for this particular customer, the average monthly bill increase is $11.24. This is a customer that uses approximately 100,000 gallons of water over the course of a year. So that $11.24 is not uniform across each of the months. During the non-irrigation season months, it would be that increase would be less than $11, and then during your irrigation months, it's going to be more than that $11. But on average, it works out to $11.24. The new one that went online this afternoon has a little bit more graphics here to show proposed 2019 and proposed 2020. So you can see them year over year, 2018 to 2019, and then 2019 to 2020. Okay? We do understand that the increases particularly on the rate side, less so on the tap fee. On the rate side, for the recommendations before you this evening, do create hardship for some of our ratepayers. As a result, we've worked rather hard over the last 2 years and have made some significant changes to our low-income credit program, the hardship program, and then working with the Jefferson County Housing Authority, who serves both Jefferson County and Adams County, a repair program and a high-efficiency toilet replacement program. We use the same federal guideline that Excel uses in their program called LEAP. We use those same guidelines for the low-income credit, so that if a customer is income qualified for LEAP, they would be income qualified for a low-income credit here. It's a one-time credit of $100 that's placed on the bill. What's important about that in this case is if you go back and you look at what I presented as, say, the low water user, you would see that the increase that we're presenting in rates to you tonight adds up to less than $100 for the year. So if they are income qualified and they do make an application, that $100 income credit would actually cover the cost of the increases before you this evening. The hardship program is intended to address a short-term difficulty that might be a job loss, for example, and there is an application procedure for that, and those are reviewed on a case-by-case basis through utility billing. I'm very proud of the changes that we have made in this program and the advances that we've made. As little as 3 years ago, these programs served a total of 5 customers in the entire year. In 2017, we served approximately 100 customers in this program, and I see that those who are in fact income qualified and have a similar qualification with Excel for their heating bill through LEAP would have a similar credit with their water bill. In terms of, next slide, in terms of conservation, again, we have a variety of programs that are available to assist every ratepayer and customer that we have, focused primarily toward the residential customer. We have the Slow the Flow outdoor irrigation audit program that's available online by sign up. It's closed now for the season, but any residential customer can sign up and have a third party come to your residence and conduct an irrigation audit and provide perhaps some useful tips that you can use. And then they follow that up with, if you sign up, they will send you an email. I think it's every 2 weeks. I want to say every 2 weeks. They'll send you an email with updated recommendations based on the weather, on what adjustments that you might make to your irrigation system. Again, it's just another resource. It could be, and it is helpful to quite a few of our residents. We have the Garden in a Box program, which not only sells out every year, but we continue to expand it every year, and it will be bigger again in the year 2019. We also focus on outreach. We go to the water festival that is a gathering of 5th grade classes every May at the Front Range Community College. And these are 5th graders from Thornton, North Glen, and Westminster. It's over 1,000 kids a year. And they put, we with the other cities put on a program of water education and conservation throughout the entire day. We also have a variety of community outreach events, whether they be, say, the Harvest Festival that's coming up next month, or other events, movie in the park events, etc., where we can continue to get the word out about our conservation programs. So as I wrap up on the next slide, I'd like to just return to a summary or a repeat of one of the early slides addressing both the goals and the needs of the program of the utility. And if you have questions, I understand we're going to take those later when we get to item 10 on the agenda. So this evening, where we are in time is you are considering tonight on first reading changes to both the fees and the tap fees and the rates, and then the second reading is scheduled for October 8th. And that concludes our presentation.
All right, thanks, Mr. Kirschbaum. All right, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the next item on the agenda. This is citizen communications. Now, for those of you who have not been here before, I'll call you up by your name. Again, ask just to repeat your name to the microphone, pull the mic close to you. When your time starts, there's a green light up on the podium. It'll come on. When you have 1 minute left, the yellow light will come on. And when your time is up, the red light will come on. Please address all your comments to me as the chair. This is not a question and answer period. This is a time for you to make comments. We do not respond to those comments. If there are questions that we don't know the answer to, that's why we have the sheets up here, so we know how to get back in touch with you with answers to your questions. The entire meeting is recorded, so the staff can go back and refer to make sure they've got the right people with the right question. That's why it's important you identify yourself so that we know it was you that asked the questions. All right, first person up, Carol Menard.
So I have some supporting documents for you all.
Just give those to the city clerk, please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Carol Menard, and I live at 1657 West 115th Circle. I am the secretary of the Ranch HOA filing number 1, and I have spoken with a few of you over the past 2 weeks. I called Chris Gray and asked for the current water rates so that I could accurately calculate the increase in my rates from 2018 to 2020. I then used the rate calculator to test the accuracy of my increase. The average monthly bill for my home is $167.87 in 2020 compared to the $124.99 in 2018. By my calculations, I will have a 26% increase from 2018 to 2020. The rate calculator came up with 18%. I contacted Chris Gray, and after some discussion, we realized the calculator is only for 2019. Residents of Westminster are faced with a 2-year increase, and for 2 weeks after the encouragement of the city officials, they went to the city website where they used an incorrect calculation for the impact of the rate increase. Many residents of the city of Westminster have large lots with grass and trees, and many of those residents are also live in the covenant-controlled areas where if they let their grass or trees die, they will be subject to fines. I can only assume that many of those residents use the incorrect rate calculator to figure out their water bills for 2019 and 2020. My calculations are between 13 and 30% increase. My August bill will go from $210 to $300 a month. And the average increase for me will be $43.88. You'll notice on the second document that I gave you is the rate, the copy of the rate calculator, which says $28.85. Finally, I would like to point out on some of the preliminary development plans that there is a note, special considerations and restrictions over the last few years on projects that have come before the council. I've included 4 of them in my material that you have there. This notation states, approval of the preliminary development plan constitutes a concept's approval of a plan subject to the ability of the City of Westminster or the landowner to provide necessary services. Due to serious short-range and long-range limitations on the raw water supply, water treatment capacity of the city, development of the land in accordance with this plan may not be possible. Approval of this plan implies no commitment of the City of Westminster to provide services. The City of Westminster advises against development of land in accordance with this plan without a thorough investigation by the developer of the availability of water and sewer services at the time of such development. It appears the Public Works and Utilities Department was warning the City Council and the Planning Department. I would like to know why the Planning Department was advising the Council to accept these plans without making the developers pay for the increased sewer and water services. I have also included one development plan brought to the Council recently, which states the developer will pay for the sewer. At the last meeting, one of the councilors was told the increase presented here is the minimum for the next 2 years. What happens in 2021? I would like the Council to consider Councilor DeMott's suggestion of the city contributing to the capital portion of the rate increase, as it appears Council knew the city was overbuilding and stressing the system. Thank you.
Good evening, Council, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for the great turnout. My name is Grady Newis, and I am your Republican candidate for state representative on the Jefferson County side of Westminster. Over the past 2 weeks, I had the opportunity to go door to door as I've been doing now for the past 12 months. I typically do a quick survey asking my constituents, what is the top issue with you? And you get a variety of answers, anything from affordable housing to transportation to curbing excessive growth. And I actually put that aside for 2 or 3 days. And I asked the specific question, have you heard of the water rate proposal? Not everybody gets the weekly or follows you guys on social media. And out of the 33 respondents I got, not one of them had heard anything about it. And I'm not saying that's from a lack of effort on your guys' end. It's just how much, there's just so much outreach in this. And unfortunately, we can't bring in everybody in the city to say, well, that $22 increase is actually going to stop me from taking my kid to karate class one time a month. Or that is going to force me to do something else. So I please ask you, and I brought this up last time, in Jefferson County on the ballot this year, we have 4 tax increases. If all 4 of those go through, plus this water rate increase, I am afraid that fixed income, low income, and middle income are going to bridge the gap here in Westminster. So I ask you on behalf of all these other tax and fee increases we have, to City Council to please consider what we have to give. A lot of us don't have much more. Our budget is going up by $1 billion a year right now in Colorado. And all we hear is we don't have enough for healthcare. We don't have enough for education. We don't have enough for transportation and infrastructure. At what point do we say, we have no more to give you? I'm personally in that scenario. It's so unfortunate. And I don't want people going on subsidies. I unfortunately think this program is going to draw another 100 to 200 people onto the water bill assistance program. And I just, it's so disheartening knowing that people on the top are going to be feeding people on the bottom again. We need to get people off the bottom off of subsidies, not find them more subsidies. So I thank you for your time. And I do think that you guys do listen to us, and I appreciate that. So thank you for your time.
Nancy Thompson.
Good evening, all. I am Nancy Thompson. I live in the forgotten South Westminster, and I would like to address some of these issues. I do want to add on to Grady's comments. I have been making numerous phone calls every day for phone banking, and I too have stopped the normal thing of what I'm supposed to be saying, and in Westminster telling people about this issue, and next to no one knew about it. And I get the weekly thing, and I follow you all on the Facebook and on the email. So I don't know what else you could do, but the voters out there are very ignorant of this and not knowing of these issues, which is very sad. But anyway, I am on a very fixed income, and I can't afford to water my lawn now, and I truly don't like to be on subsidies. And I understand Max said that we had a 1 year only subsidy of $100, whereas LEAP is every single year. And I realize heat is more important than water, but it seems to me that if it's only 1 year that we could forego the subsidy and use it to, especially since so few people are using it, that we should put it more towards the infrastructure or what have you. But and I also don't understand, I thought I had heard from the last meetings that we went here about the big tanks and the water and all. I thought I was understanding that our infrastructure and for the water and sewer were all going fine, and that we needed the big tanks and blah blah, and you all had your presentations out here, and this was really surprising to me that all of a sudden this has come up that we needed this. I realize in any housing or anything that we always have to look out to the future to see what we need, but just from 2 years ago when the water tank issue was so big to now, I don't see how and where that happened. So I would like the answer to that. I also listened to parts of last September 10th to now, and I didn't hear him specifically say it, but last time I thought I heard him say that there was going to be a fixed fee of up to 20% or from $9 to $20 on my sewer bill, and I don't even have Westminster sewer. Those of us down south have the Crestview water and sanitation, or at least sanitation. So I don't know why my bill is going up $20 for the city of Westminster when I'm dealing with Crestview. But I don't understand why this is happening now and where the monies went when it seemed like we were fairly stable and had a good budget and a good outlook towards our budget into the future. So I would just like some questions, some answers to those questions, and figure out where we are, because Max didn't really answer those areas of concern. But thank you very much.
Anil Mathai.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. My name is Anil Mathai. I am a Westminster City resident. I have an MBA. I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, so I understand the technical issues. I got the financial issues, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper here. I'm standing for my family, and I'm going to stand here and represent middle-class tax-paying families of Westminster. From this council office all the way up to the northeastern part of Westminster, you are talking about 10 miles of middle-class families where we're basically ignored. We talk about the Westminster Mall all the time. We talk about everything in the last couple of years about sustainability and everything. but you want to increase tax rates and you keep on selling affordable housing. What does affordable mean when you have to increase people's tax rates? What does it mean when you increase their water rates? What does it mean for affordable? Because let me tell you, the con game is very clear. The taxpayers from here up to northeastern part of Westminster and down to the south is paying the affordable definition. We are tired of this. You talk about diversity and inclusion. Well, how does that work when you kick out the middle class taxpayers? When you keep increasing rates across the board, more and more people cannot afford it and they have to leave. What's the point of coming to Westminster? What is the point? I can go through the numbers. I got all the general fund budgets and all the stuff that you have. I know your agenda is right there. None of the details was given to the rest of the people. But look, let's look at the numbers. We are the fourth highest sales tax rate in Colorado. We are the 8th largest city. You want to keep building? Keep building. You want to keep pushing middle class people out? Keep doing that. For the sustainability, for the quote diversity, for the affordability. When government increases taxes, it's always going to be higher than what you predicted. Our costs are going up. We have to stop this nonsense. Do you care about the rest of the residents of Westminster, or do you care about the influx of 2 million that keep talking about this all the time? Who's paying your current bills today? 8.6% is the tax rate in Westminster. You know, I came from Philadelphia. This con game happened all the time. Growing city, growing government, growing all this stuff. Let me tell you, Detroit has a history. Philadelphia has a history. New York City has a history. Newark has a history. Camden has a history. We can keep growing, but one day someone, just like Margaret Thatcher says, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. We have to stop this con game. We have taxpayers that cannot pay. Middle-class families will be leaving. I am asking you to stop this. Go back and decrease this city government. Go back into your budget. There's other areas you can pull money for to repair all the damages that you need to do, especially near where I live. Someone needs to take accountability for the failure of not accounting for this stuff. Who's going to take accountability? Let me conclude with this. I came to Westminster for my family. You're on the verge of forcing me and many other thousands of middle-class families out. Who's going to speak for them? You stop the tax rate to increase the sustainability, growing our middle class, and grow our middle class. That's what we need to do. Go find other ways to increase, and stop attacking businesses and increasing their rates. There's a day that they're going to go on the other side of I-25, or they're going to go to Arvada. They have lower tax rates than you. And you think it's not there yet. You know, we had the Orchard Mall there. Just wait till you get to the other side of Thornton when they opened up those stores. This has to stop. People are having a tough time making their budgets accountable and balanced. We have to stop this. Please, I'm asking you again, stop this tax, go back into your budgets, lower government. You can find the money somewhere else, and please stop spending on things that are not needed there. 2 million people are coming, but let me tell you this, 2 million people will leave.
Sharon Keel.
Well, I'm afraid I can't say it much better than that. We have lived, my husband and I have lived in Westminster for over 40 years. We're both retired now. I've worked for 52 years. My husband's disabled, and I can't go back to work like I need to because I have to be with him. There are lots of seniors in the forgotten part of Westminster, in South Westminster, where we live. I live close to Nancy. We cannot afford a water bill that is going to go up double or triple. Right now, by the time I get to the end of the month, I don't even have grocery money. You know, the last week of the month, I'm lucky if I have anything left at all. We just can't do it. 21% is extremely excessive as far as I'm concerned for senior citizens, and there are a lot of us in that part of town. My husband is pretty much housebound, and all we can do is sit outside and enjoy our yard. If these water rates pass, we won't even be able to do that. I try to garden. I love flowers. I love gardening. I can't do it anymore. This year will be the last year because my water bill has been over $100 the last 3 months each. You know, the city waters excessively, while the citizens' yards turn brown. You're going to run people out of Westminster because they want nice yards, they want flowers, they want gardens, and we can't afford to do it anymore. You talked about revenues and expenses and debt that you have. Well, as senior citizens, we don't get raises. I haven't had a Social Security raise in, I think, 4 years now. Nothing. You know, I mean, I can show you the proof of that. But our expenses increase. Where does it come from? You know, I don't understand. You're breaking the backs of the seniors because of all this new growth. It has to stop. Thank you.
Eric Mercier.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I actually wasn't here for the water. It's actually surprising to hear. I am a native Westminster. I grew up off of 80th and Sheridan as I was a kid, and I mean, just to hear this is kind of hurtful. You know, higher taxes. I have a family of 4, and I listen to these people. I make 60 grand a year, and I struggle. But that's not what I'm here today for. I'm here on the request of Los Arcos Mexican Restaurant. For the past 40 years, Mr. and Miss Luevano has successfully had a successful relationship with your citizens of Westminster and abroad. So today I'm asking you to allow Mr. and Miss Luevano to replace a sign on the front of their sign originally. It's now plexiglass to a digital sign. From what I was told a couple months ago when I called, there's a 1980s law stating that restaurants or businesses cannot produce digital signs, only churches and schools. So in order to do this, now I'll read this for a minute. After 40 years of Los Arcos, is asking the city of Westminster to allow the sign to have a new digital sign next to the existing sign. It would measure in the 72 inches tall by 69 inches wide. By allowing Los Arcos to have the sign, they can display new items that are on the menu, as well as special occasions as of anniversaries, city council meetings, birthdays, and also weather changes and school reports. They are willing to do this as a patron of City of Westminster. They would also display the hours of operations if they're closed for like Christmas or any other special events. At Los Arcos, they would plead with the City Council and the City of Westminster to allow their family restaurant permission to have a digital sign. Again, I'm a very good friend of the Luevanos. I've helped them over the past few years. Again, I am a life resident of West City, Westminster. I've watched Los Arcos go from a little bitty shop to what they are now into 4 different restaurants. So I had handed Mr. Finkel, the city attorney, a copy of the letter from Los Arcos, and we plead that you guys allow us to have a digital sign. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Joanne Price.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I wanted to know, did this get sent out to all the residents of the city, either by water bill or door to door, because this is going to affect every resident. So I don't think it's fair if it's not out there personally at every doorstep. Then I've also been a lifelong resident, in fact, my whole life. I was born and raised here. And I've never seen the city going downhill as it is today. I am really kind of embarrassed. It was a desirable city to come to, and now it's getting so it's not. My renters already I have 2 rentals, the one I grew up in and my grandparents. And my renters already can't afford the water bills. So I was gonna take it over. I give them very reasonable rent so they can stay. They're very good people, and I really like them. And our water bill has gotten outrageous too, but it's just my husband and I now, so I try to keep it down. But my renters already can't. I had to let the front yards go already this year. So if that's, you're hurting the people that you claim to want to help. Again, just like the trash. So it kind of gets me mad. Also, when I was on council, if you guys could look back, I was part of signing bills that we voted on the big Dry Creek. And we were promised that that would be good enough to build out. Here we are 10 years later. I know we have infrastructure problems. I know we have to have upkeep. I understand all that you guys are hearing. And these rates all looked good until you really put them down on paper and you see what people are making. Because my husband and I make pretty decent money too. This summer, usually our summer water bills, when we try to keep our yard up, it's usually about $150 in the summer. In July, I got a $370 bill. I don't know what happened. I called right away, had people come out and check my water sprinkler. No, everything's fine. I don't know what happened. Well, since then, I found out that there's about 20 other people that have told me theirs happened in July too. Same thing. So with this new rate increase, all of a sudden in July's, are we going to be getting some $600 bill? I don't know what to expect. Again, I urge you to look back on the promises that were made about the water would be safe and taken care of at least the big Dry Creek plant, and that we were good to build out. Now, I think they thought build out would be about $115,000. I don't know what we're at right today. We might be close to that. And obviously, we're going to have more people with what's building at downtown Westminster. But I think you guys are doing a big disservice to Westminster. The parks and everything that you guys have made look great, but the citizens are going down. Thank you.
Charles Klein.
Your Honor, we request our name be released from the statement at this time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Don Fettis.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. My name's Don Fittis. I'm a Westminster resident. Clearly, we have many concerns here this evening about the increase in water rates, but I also understand that we are at a crossroads in terms of the viability of further water treatment, in particular the Semper water treatment plant. That's going to take a great deal of money to rebuild. We enjoy a high-quality water system here, but I think, based on comments here tonight, I think we have to reconsider the rate proposals as stated and go back to the drawing board and reevaluate the rate increases. In addition to that, I know that the water and sewer system is supposed to pay itself, and it's been discussed that we should be taking money from the general fund and moving it into the water and sewer system. I would discourage that. I think you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and that's a slippery slope. So thank you for your time.
Beth McConnell.
Good evening. I live at 1691 West 115th Circle. I'm a widow. I do not use that much water. I live in an area where I do get fined if I don't keep my grass and trees watered. Last year in July, my water bill was $80 a month. August, $80 a month. This year in July was $178 a month. In August, it was $202 a month. And I had my sprinkler gentleman out trying to find a leak, and eventually he did find a leak, and I'd found it had happened when I had a tree service do deep root fertilizing, and they'd gone through my water line. So I'm thinking I'm going to get penalized because I have all these excess gallons of water that I used that I wasn't aware of a leak, and the sprinkler person couldn't find the leak for 2 months. So I have a concern about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Phil Morgan. Phil Morgan. Okay. Kathy Plummer.
Can we give you all some handouts? Good evening, my name is Kathy Plummer. I'm president of the Adams 12 Board of Education, and I'm here tonight with Laura Mitchell, who's our vice president. Thank you for allowing us to speak. We are here to speak to you and ask for your support for 2 ballot measures that would greatly benefit Adams 12 students. The statewide funding measure, Amendment 73, that we'll discuss would also benefit Westminster Public Schools and Jeffco Public Schools. Before I begin speaking about the measures, I would like to first thank you for all you have done for Adams 12. The assistance you provided to Cotton Creek and Arapahoe Ridge for the mobile conversions were invaluable. And having 5 of our career and tech ed students do internships in city departments this past year has been amazing. So thank you very much. The funding measures I will talk about tonight will help us staff up and expand our new career and technical education facility to include new programs in things like fire safety and provide more opportunities for us to partner with you as a city. So what are these measures? As you know, we passed our no tax rate increase bond in 2016, which allowed us to invest $350 million into buildings and infrastructure. These projects, including our Cotton Creek and Arapahoe Ridge expansions, getting rid of those mobiles, are started and will be ongoing for the next few years. We made a strategic decision in 2016 not to ask for operating funds at the same time we asked voters to pass a bond, even though operational dollars were needed, and our bond was a no tax rate increase bond. The time has come that we must go before voters for additional operational support for the people and programs that make Adams 12 a performance-rated district and the district that had the highest academic growth of the 10 metro area school districts. Before we talk about resources, and we don't take that lightly, asking our citizens for more resources, it is really most about the vision of what we want to offer our students. We spent last year conducting a strategic planning process called Elevate to learn what our parents, students, and community wanted the district to provide for their students. Over 7,000 people weighed in. All of the spending priorities that are part of our plans are directed by what we heard through our strategic planning process. You have 3 handouts from Laura and from us. One describes Elevate, our strategic planning process. The other outlines specifically spending priorities based on the dollars that we may have the opportunity to receive. And the third is a fact sheet on Amendment 73. The first funding measure I want to discuss is ballot issue 5C. It is a local mill levy override proposal of $27 million. It would be funded by raising property taxes by about $300 per year on the average Adams 12 home. If voters pass this measure, everything you see on your handout that is listed in Tier 1 would be funded. These are our most pressing priorities, including addressing our non-competitive starting teacher pay, addressing class sizes at the middle and high school levels, and providing more class size relief at elementary schools. We would add academic interventionists and school safety measures like campus supervisors and key cards for high school entrances. Amendment 73 is the second measure that the Board of Education and all Board of Educations in your area are supporting. It is a statewide ballot initiative that would raise $1.6 billion for public education statewide. Adams 12 would receive $60 million in additional revenue per year. The measure would raise funding levels back to what they were before the Great Recession. This would be done through a graduated income tax on earners with a federal taxable income of $150,000 or higher, and increases in taxes on C corporations to 6%, still one of the lowest in the country, and would actually lower property tax rates from 7.2 to 7% for residential taxes and from 29% to 24% for non-residential taxes for just the education portion of your taxes. Those rates would then remain frozen there. Amendment 73 would fund everything listed in Tier 1 and Tier 2 on your handout. It would allow us to relook at high school start times, which we know are too early, but we need to add bus routes to get those fixed, add back middle school sports, and provide needed extra services for special education, English language learners, and gifted students. Extra money would also come in to provide more early childhood and all-day kindergarten options. Tier 3 on your handout is what we could do if both pass, which would be a true game changer. We are hoping that you as a council will consider two different resolutions of support, one that would support our local ballot issue 5C and the other resolution for Amendment 73. Am I done? Oh, sorry. I didn't pay attention to the red. So thank you so much for your time this evening.
Charlene Baker.
Good evening. My name is Charlene Baker. I've been a resident of Westminster for over 23 years. I am asking the council to vote against the proposed tier system of water increases. Thank you, Councilor DeMott, for your efforts to stop and communicate what is going on. We already have one of the highest water rates currently. I cannot believe the staff proposed this plan in light of assuring residents that our infrastructures were fine in the past. I don't see this as transparent. All residents should have been notified about this. I see it as highly deceptive. It is a way to get extra money in a sneaky way. By raising water rates, you don't have to propose a tax increase. I also don't understand how you can be so biased towards people on limited or tight incomes or middle incomes. Don't you recall the recent trash fiasco? This water hike will have more of a financial impact than the trash proposal, in my opinion. You give away tons of money to developers, yet we can't find money for our own citizens. I understand that business rates will increase. Businesses that have to pay increased tiered water rates are going to question their location. Why would I have a business here? Is it the only reason that they come is because you give them lots of extra money? We're going to have a city that is no longer a viable, inviting city. Residents will cut back their use, leaving yards looking unkept. Also, less water use means you're not going to get money for your infrastructure. HOAs will increase fees to match their needs. School districts will be impacted. The quality of life will be diminished. Gardening, flowers, its beauty will be lost. I shouldn't see a fountain running anywhere with these kinds of water issues. Realtors will steer their clients away from Westminster. People will move away. Home values will decrease. Yet, we throw more money into developers and downtowns and whatever, massive housing. I wonder how inviting downtown is going to be to investors when the rest of the city is looking uninviting. Please think this over seriously. Thank you.
Era Gallagher.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, wait, can I give this to you? Hi, everyone. My name is Era Gallagher, and I work for Unison Housing Partners, used to be called Adams County Housing Authority. And I am here to thank the Westminster Police Department for being amazing and offering a ton of amazing community policing on our properties. We've had a couple events where I've asked the Westminster Police Department to come and to engage with our families and our communities. One was a holiday celebration where I gave officers glitter glue and My Little Ponies, and they gave them out to all the kids in the community and interact with the families. We also have an event called What Home Means to Me, and it's an event where kids are able to color what home means to them, and they write an essay about what home means to them, and these are all young kids that live on our properties. And I invited the Westminster Police Department to come, and they actually sat down and drew and colored with our families. We also have a program called HIPPY, which stands for Home Instruction for Parents of Preschool Age Youngsters. And we believe that parents are the most important and first educator in a child's life. And so we have home visitors that will go to parents' homes and teach them preschool curriculum, and they will use what's in the parents' homes. The young children that participate in this program actually do better than 66% of just kids that are coming straight to kindergarten. They also have a lower rate of child abuse as well. And so I asked the Westminster Police Department if we could have a group outing at the HQ right across the street, and they said yes, of course. So they're going to have 56 preschoolers in their headquarters, and they're going to have a dog, and they're going to let us see the SWAT team and introduce us to other police officers. And for me, it's really important for our families and the children to have positive interactions with our police department. Know that if there's something going on in their community, something going on home, that these individuals can help them, protect them, and help them find services they need. So far, we've had 35 police officers on our properties, and they've given us 210 hours of volunteer time well, they're paid, but for us, they're coming in as volunteers. So I just want to thank the Westminster Police Department for just being really great partners and really, just supporting our communities and supporting our work. And then the flyer that you have right now, sorry, I was a teacher before this, so. The flyer right now is I want to invite you to headquarters right across the street and join us. There's going to be food and beads, and they're going to color, I don't know, police helmets, and there's going to be a dog. So, yeah, you're more than welcome to come, and if you have any questions, Sharon knows how to contact me, so. All right, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Jeremy Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor Atchison and council and supporting staff. My name is Jeremy Rodriguez. I'm here on behalf of Congressman Ed Perlmutter. I wanted to give you guys a brief ledge update and district update. This week and in September, generally, there's a lot going on. This week, there's 38 items to be up for debate and consideration on the suspension calendar. Give you a little brief overview of what is under consideration. DHS cybersecurity, we have VA authorities and benefits, sex crimes against children, small business advocacy, small business size, intellectual property NIST reauthorization. NIST is this is a measure that would direct and prioritize research in quantum information, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, composites, among other things. This is located in Boulder, so this is quite important to the state of Colorado and innovation within our country as well. Energy Department and VA Health Project. We have a FAA reauthorization that's happening on Wednesday. And we also have 3 tax bills coming up, and if anybody would like any more information regarding any of these issues, we'd be happy to discuss those with you in our district office or with our DC staff as well. We have a few events coming up in the district office coming up in November and December. On November 16th, we have our Senior Resource Fair at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The location, I believe, is at one of our recreation centers here in the district. You can look in our website for more information on where those are at. That is all I have for you all today. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those. Otherwise, you all have a good rest of your evening. It's going to be a long one, it seems like. Take care.
Dean Vandenberg.
Mayor and City Council, I don't come before you very often unless there's a real concern. And this real concern, I'm going to use a statement made by a former mayor, Ed Moss. And he says, I want you to think about Westminster when you use the water faucet and the toilet, because that's one of our main sources of income. And I really have to say to you tonight that you have a real problem with transparency. You have a real problem with credibility. And soon the voting constituents of this city are going to know about this. I understand that the water and the sewer is not governed by Gallagher, because we're not a special district, or Tabor, because it's not within the essential services of a city. It is a public utility. It is for profit, and the city takes that profit. I also want to reflect on the wealth of this city. I'm understanding we're near $200 million. And I understand that we have approximately $83 million towards depreciating infrastructure. I also understand that Stanley Lake was annexed in 1971, and we have senior water rights, which means we have priority. I also understand that past council has been assured by city staff multiple times, multiple councils, that at build-out, 130,000 people, Westminster was well prepared for both sewer and water needs. Now, something doesn't make sense here. We heard a past city council person, and I've been a resident of this city for 23 years. I've been in public service 30 years. So I understand how cities work. I understand how the city manager's office works. And I'm very, very concerned, based off of what we just saw with the trash debacle coming from our planning department, and now this water hike, sewage hike, coming from our planning department. I don't know where you're coming up with this stuff, but it's not making sense. And we as citizens want to know what's going on. I understand legally you don't have to send us anything in our water bill, which you changed a couple years ago. So we have no envelope to mail it back. Looks like junk mail, so a lot of us mistaked it when you made the transition. No notice there either. So I just want to come in front of you and express my dismay, not only with the trash situation, but now with the water situation also. Some of you have been to my yard, and I take great pride in my yard. And I've donated hundreds of hours to Neighbors for Countryside. I live north of Stanley Lake, so I know how big that reservoir is, and I know how big the second reservoir is that is just to the west of it. And I understand the history through my love of railroading in the Colorado Railroad Museum and how Stanley Lake's history transpired and how Westminster got the water rights and how they defeated Arvada to administer them and how they gained a tremendous asset in water. That's why they annexed all the way out there back in those years. So something doesn't make sense here. I encourage you to go back to your staff and quiz them and basically ask them the hard questions that need to be asked, because you're affecting everybody in this room. You're affecting me, a 23-year resident. I'm coming up on retirement probably in 6 or 8 years. And I more than likely will not be spending it here because everything is gone sky high. And just to tell you, no homes are selling in my area currently, and that's a big change. And we have pre-foreclosures. And we worked diligently with the city to form Neighbors for Countryside to improve a 2,600 resident subdivision that's not under an HOA. This is going to have dramatic detrimental effects to our neighborhood, which our water department is they're very quick to turn the water off if you don't pay this within a couple weeks. Very quick. Many of my neighbors have had their water cut off because they couldn't pay for it. And that's pretty mean. So, you have my 2 cents, and I'm going to make sure that everybody in my neighborhood finds out about this and that we let you know how we feel.
Kevin Davidson.
City Council, good evening. Mayor, good evening. My name is Kevin Davison. Ladies and gentlemen, I come here as a concerned citizen. The reason being, and what I kind of mold this to, is I spent 34 years with DOD, all kinds of huge projects, multi-million-dollar projects. Was at one time in charge of $660 million worth of assets. When I see this kind of mismanagement into a large machine, such as a utility, a wastewater utility, a piece of equipment basically, very expensive indeed. It has a lot to do with the safety and the health of all these people in this room, including yourselves. And when I see and hear of what seems to me as mismanagement in crisis, how do you eat an elephant? One small piece at a time, one small piece of equipment at a time gets changed. You don't levy these kinds of things in one big chunk on a group of people. They'll upheave. That's what's going on here tonight. It's an upheaval. And I look at this as a crisis in a bubble. How many HOAs are here in Westminster? 20? So you're going to increase their individual water rates, and then the HOAs are going to have to increase theirs. So you have all that. Does that land firmly on your desk pad? The other thing that I would bring to you is that if this passes, we will have the highest water rates on the whole Front Range from Cheyenne to Pueblo. And if you don't think that'll make our property values dip, which just cascades into everything else that we've heard tonight, everything. So I would ask you to reconsider if this is the real reason, and I've heard very many people up here tonight talking about transparency. If this is the real reason that these rate increases are being imposed, then I would suggest there's been mismanagement in trying to eat this elephant called a sewage utility program. I yield my time.
Bruce Baker.
Really, thank you. My name is Bruce Baker. I live at 14761 Calumet Court in Westminster. I, of course, know many of you on council, and I have current intimate knowledge of all the things, and I'm not going to belabor the really conundrum of how for 4 years when I was on council, we had no problems with our infrastructure and our reinvestment programs. No problems at all, and we had outside consultants look at them and give them opinions both in 2012 and 2015. And I'm not going to belabor the point that in the last 5 years, we've made a $30 million profit just on our water department and put away $83 million as really depreciation to buy capital expense. And I'm not going to belabor the point that most other cities around here, whether it be Denver or the water districts in Lakewood or Fort Collins or Loveland or Pueblo, can really provide their water and sewer at 2/3 of what we're currently charging. I'm here to talk about a dream. Talking about a dream that Charlene and I had when we built our house. And we looked at places from Castle Rock to Fort Collins. And we chose Westminster. We chose Westminster because it's an oasis in Colorado High Plains. And I know it's an oasis, and we all know it's an oasis. And the previous council members who came before it, they knew it was a desert too. But they made provisions for us. And they set aside water, expensive at the time, but it's their legacy to the people who live here now. And it's that water that gives us a green Westminster. That was one of the dreams that we had. And I think most of my neighbors shared that dreams, and in the wonderful neighborhoods up and down. I remember when I was on council and we had a water presentation which assured us we had enough water, not only for full build out, but there was water set aside for original Westminster. Because we said one of the problems they have is they don't have irrigation systems like we have in the north and the west. And irrigation systems conserve water and use it very wisely and smartly. And we wanted to turn old original Westminster green again, because that way makes a beautiful city. We do all kinds of parkways that are green and irrigated. We have very large requirements on developers to put in green spaces by our roads. And we may have green spaces by our roads, but if we have dulled, dried up neighborhoods, that defeats everything. And it's the flowers we plant in the front yard that add something that each individual person pays for out of their pocket. Do they get the benefit of it? Oh, when they walk out of their house and go home. But the rest of the time, the benefits to the city. It's their neighborhood. It's the people who drive by. These are what make things a desirable city. And conservation? My goodness, in my neighborhood, we understood one of the drawbacks we had, besides paying the highest school tax in the state of Colorado, was we had very large lots. How are we going to make them attractive? And we made plans. We made plans to conserve water. I have a lot that's 6 times the average lot size. And I don't use more than 3.5 times the water of an average lot. But under these new plans, a water bill of $207 in 1999 will be $724 in 2020. It's going to be real hard. And there's us who can afford it, certainly. But a lot of our neighbors can't. And they had dreams too. And what I see on this water rate is intolerance. That's what I see. Intolerance. You don't like the heavy users. You think it's wasteful. You think it's something else. And intolerance is driven by hate. And if you want Westminster to be the city of intolerance, driven by hate, you have the power to do that. I implore you not to. Don't turn us into a dry, desolate desert. Thank you.
America's Kidman.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Americus Kalmar. I just make a note on it. I was under Hitler. Our house was bombed down. And when we rebuilt it, the government took it. And we are going this way now. Either socialism or capitalism, which is not capitalism anymore, but socialism. So I just warn you and get your attention to this. Now, let's see these things. First of all, you had a nice calculation on what goes where, but that's kind of intimidating. I felt myself, oh, I'm so ignorant in this, I could not even talk. So I was just spinning around. Anyway, I could not figure out my water bill from my information. Anyway, I wonder last time we have a garbage collection problem. I think it's called nationalizing garbage, but I would say that it was actually a city-realization attempt. And I had a suspicion by that time if we have enough money in the city or not. They want to get more income or not, because there might be a trash collection fee goes down for a while, but after this goes up. So I kind of wondering of shortage of money by the city. Now, if we talk about water, elderly will be hit very hard because elderly have a lot of bills to pay. I just went to bathroom in the break for me, and I came back. So I use extra water. Just think of it. If you have a prostate problem, your bill will go up. So please, don't have mercy on me. Just one thing. Okay. And the elderly, you hear the cry of elderly people. I think that's always, and that will go to the whole nation. And I am convinced we are on the road of Los Angeles. We handed out money, charity, homeless, whatever, immigrant, whatever. Everybody's helping. They take my telephone money for poor people, my Excel energy to the poor people, and nothing left for me, almost 25% for other people. Anyway, that's elderly problem. And then I wonder if somebody has a bigger yard, you have an extra charge instead of looking the usage, water usage. I'm really stingy with the water usage. My wife reminding me, flush the toilet. I just tell, I save water, but doesn't believe it. She doesn't. Okay. That's a house situation. I'm sure the audience have a same problem. Okay, in a school, they recommended already this. Other thing I would bring up, there was a plan. You know, you have a plan. Russia had a plan, 3 years plan, 5 years plan. And you know what? None of them worked. And you know what they said? Oh, that's a weather. Oh, that's a reactionary. That's a Nazi, a fascist, and all the things. No, it was just bad economy what they created. And the words what you use, conservation. You know what? Conservation of the Russia. Conserve, no production. Bingo, poverty. And they use, and also they use the recycling. So nothing new about that, except they called environmentalism because we will die if you don't do something, okay? So the other thing I would like to bring up, affordable housing. It is not affordable, that's why the poor people have to go there and pay less. And pretty soon, elderly will be unaffordable. We have to go, my computer email tells me I should get a Section 8.
Mr. Collin, your time is up, sir.
Over?
You're over.
Oh, I'm sorry. My life is not over yet.
Okay, I'm going to take one more person, then we're going to take a short bio break. The next person up is Candace Chain.
Good evening. I've been working on my lawn, I hurt my back, so. Hello, my name is Candace Chain. I live in Highland Greens. I've been a resident for 40 years. Do you believe it? And it's changed a lot. The reason I came here tonight, I am concerned about the water increase because I've had high bills too, and I have a large lot. And I also live in an HOA, which I have to keep it green. And it's a job. You know, I've cut down and put in grasses where I could so I didn't use a lot of water. Like I have 12 grasses or 13. So I don't even plant flowers. I'm just trying to keep it beautiful the best I can. So I am very concerned about the increase. I am semi-retired, and every dime means something to me. Living here 40 years, I've seen a lot of changes. Some good, some not so good. The reason I really came here tonight, I'm very concerned about the sewer capacity. And I'm a realtor of 30 years, and just like an HOA does, they put reserve accounts away. So there's money for your infrastructure, so we don't have to get bounced with high sewer charges later on. So I don't know your budget, but I feel that you're putting out building permits, you're building Highland Greens Village, which personally I think it's poor planning. You know, 256 apartments in there, on top of people that went in there and paid $700,000 for a home, $650, and then you surprise them with 256 rentals in there. And I just think that's very poor. That whole project is dense. It looks ridiculous. That's my opinion. And I've sold a lot of houses in Westminster, Arvada, in the northern area, and I just look at that project and I think, I have people that live in there and they can't get their car out of their garage. It's so tight. Anyway, that's one issue. The sewer capacity, concerned about the planning and how that was built. And then I looked that you were going to build a project up to 112th and Sheridan, something about a 4-story apartment building. So I don't quite understand, you're going to build these type of things and we have an emergency with a sewer capacity problem. And I live in that, and I'm concerned whether this is going to be a safety issue for my home. Am I going to go down my finished basement and have sewer backed up in my house? So that's a big concern, and I think it's irresponsible if this is being such an emergency now that you guys didn't know about this and plan about this 10 years ago. That's what HOAs, they plan for problems, and I'm concerned that, you know, I read about the emergency meeting that came up, and the next day it was an emergency, no more building permits unless you've already got your permit in. And I just don't understand that. So that's one issue. High sales tax is another issue, and now you're going to raise our water rates. Overbuilding, if we don't have the resources, we should not overbuild. And then I do love your pool, the Westminster Fitness. I'm there 3 days a week. But they just remodeled it and cleaned it. And it may be a rumor, but I was told that they just put $500,000 into the baby pool over there. $500,000 with a new thing, which the other one was perfect. There we go with budget, and then finding money to do that, and then we have to pay higher water rates and high taxes. So I think someone said here tonight, priorities, and we should be your priorities, I think, because we pay the taxes, we support this city. So those are some of my issues. I'm concerned about the mall. You know, I talked to someone on your board about this mall, and I forgot her name, and she's telling me this mall will take 2 decades. Well, if you think that water's going to run people out, that's going to run people out. I mean, who's going to come in here? I think you've got it started, but who wants to live surrounding a pennies? I know that that's the way they build nowadays, but that's concerning, and I've been told that it's going to take 2 decades to build that out. That's 20 years? I mean, do you think people are going to want to move with that sitting there all the time? Anyway, I'm not coming up to be critical. These have things that have been on my mind, and I just wanted to address it with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short pause, so we'll be back in shortly.
you find out?
Exactly.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, please. All right, the next person up is Jim Moore.
Hello, I'm Jim Moore. I live at 3598 North Park Drive here in Westminster. Been a resident for 35 years, and I'm equally disappointed in this proposed rate hike, of course. And so much has been said, but one point that I would like to make about this, what I see unfolding on a broader scale, is there are things that are called unintended consequences that everybody's heard about, but I really believe there's kind of a subtle intended consequence with the shaping of demographics that will occur through this rate hike. We're forcing people, or we're encouraging the growth of multifamily housing at the expense of single-family housing, and everybody's aware that when you get a multifamily housing situation, you're usually going to encourage more of a democratic base, and that will just ensure many of the people here on the council longevity. So my belief in this is the rate hike, even though the purpose is temporary, the thing that's going to be sustainable is the people on the council's existence on the council, because you'll be able to assure that a voter base continues to follow your lead. And that's really about all I have to say that's new, other than, of course, it's going to be a burden on the average family. That's
Julie Williams.
All right, I'm Julie Williams. I am a Colorado native, and I've lived in Westminster most of my life, and this is my son with special needs, Randy Williams. And first thing I'd like to just address, if the Los Arcos people are still here, our regulations on signage in Westminster is ridiculous, and it's driving out the small businessmen. And we need to support folks like them who have longevity in town and newcomers that are coming in that are going to bring in wealth and growth. But I'm really here to talk about the rate hike. I'm afraid that Westminster is trying to be a Boulder. And I've watched Boulder go through all the redoing of their sewage systems. And it wasn't just simply redoing their sewers. They're building the Panama Canal. And it has taken years and years and years for this infrastructure that isn't necessary. Rebuilding the sewage is necessary, but making it an art district is not. Just like what's happening at the Westminster Mall. It's looking at what are the priorities. So in my family of four, we're looking at a $50 rate hike. And you times that by 12. That's $600 a year. And then if the school tax increase passes, that's another $300 a year. And then you look at the food bill, and when you increase water rates, that increases our food bill. And people are struggling to put food on the table. And I know it's not easy in my family, and we have 2 working people. And how is that going to help someone like my son ever have independence? Raising our rates is going to create more dependency on government and not growth and opportunity for our community and individuals. When you raise our water rates, what we're doing is we are making it hard for families to have the mere necessities of life, food and water. And they go hand in hand together. So raising that rate gives government power and control over people and the choices that they make in life. I, for one, want freedom and opportunity for everyone. And I don't want to see government turning into slavery of the American citizens. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to be heard. My name is Alan Campbell. I live at 5521 West 117th Place. I've been in Westminster for 35 years. Since I've been here, I've noticed when I first moved here, Westminster had the best water. I came from Lakewood at the time. And before that, I lived in Arvada, and Westminster by far had the best quality water that I'd tasted in the area, and that's all I drank. But that being said, the quality has fluctuated in the last 10 years or so, maybe even longer, 15. I'm not sure what causes that. Perhaps it's the system being overtaxed and it's been changed, and so we're just not getting the water that we did before, the quality. And then the feel and the appearance of Westminster has changed. It felt like such a vibrant city before, clean, and now it does not feel that way. It feels like a city that's struggling. And so here we are considering, and I was listening to the speakers before, and basically these are proposals to increase taxes. That's what this water fee is. Just that the citizens don't get to vote on it. So here we are, a city with the 4th highest water rates in the state, and yet we're only 8th in the population. And that's if I heard everything correctly. And the other thing I heard is that the school mill levies, that we are the highest in Colorado. Is that Jefferson County? But that being said, I'll deal with that later. So back to the water issue. I was told that the reports were that everything was looking good for our water system and our situation here in Westminster. And what happened? Where did the money go? It brings up a question, who pays for the water tap fees of the affordable housing initiative that you guys have got going here? Are you subsidizing that? I mean, let's be real here. It's not your money, it's our money. You're just directing who gets it. So my point B now is the school taxes that they're asking for. Why do we need more money in taxes for schools? We in the USA spend more per student than almost every other country in the world, yet we rank near the bottom in standardized test results. So where is that money going? Obviously, throwing money at it isn't fixing the problem. So I would say, please don't do that. Don't add more mill levy. They can get that money from administration and from mandate programs that are really unnecessary. The money is there. It's just apparently not getting to the classroom. So, based on everything that I've said, it all comes down to where is the money going? And I suggest that the money is there in the budget somewhere. Whether it's for the schools or for the city of Westminster, you just need to go get it and use that money instead of more of ours. Thank you.
Joe Janicki.
Good evening, councilors, and Mayor. Thank you for allowing the paying public to comment on your intentions this evening. And I wanted to thank my fellow taxpayers for showing up and expressing their opinion on this. And clearly, we're not going to have an opportunity to hear everybody's opinion this evening. So I would suggest that we continue this taxpayer input into your water rate increase to another evening so you can get all of our input. Imagine if you've only 5% of Westminster's taxpayers knew this rate increase was flying below the radar. They've obviously missed it. I'm a competitive guy. I like to compete. And when I look at the water rates that our surrounding communities are charging, you know, for example, Pueblo, Denver, Evergreen, or Aurora, geez, we have a pretty lousy team because our water rates are higher than theirs already before your new proposed increase. And I guess that surprises me because I thought we had a good team. I thought we had this infrastructure guys, you know, Max over here, who answers to the city managers over there, and the buck stops on Herb's desk over here, and that you guys are managing our assets in a good way, in a way that the taxpayers deserve. And clearly, you're not, because everybody else is doing it cheaper, better, faster, and with less staff. As far as I'm concerned, looking at these numbers, the winner for water utility and sewer management is Pueblo. Can you imagine? Their rates are half of what ours are now for 4 times more volume of water. I suggest that we and outsource them to Pueblo or Aurora. God, can you imagine how lousy their water rights are and how much they're paying? And they are kicking our ass. Even Denver, probably one of the most dysfunctional cities known, kicks our ass before the rate increase. So I propose, and it sounds like we have an agreement here, that your mandate is to clear the slate, clear the bench, if it was legal terms, and get rid of our utility guys. Our city managers have failed here. They're the guys with the crystal ball. They're supposed to be looking out into the future and knowing where we're going to put up lampposts and build roads and run water infrastructures and electrical lines and stuff like that. Failed. Didn't see the colossal collapse of our water system, which suddenly is requiring a hell of a water increase price. What happened? What happened to the $200 million that the city has in the bank? What happened to the $83 million that the water department has already set aside for a depreciating asset? Where did it go? What happened? It must be still there. I haven't heard of any, robberies lately. And you guys are still banking $4 million a year in water profits. This is a very rich city. And one of the problems with rich cities, people that have a lot of money, is they don't spend it wisely. They don't pay attention to it. You guys hire consultants everywhere. I mean, you just had a water consultant. What did we pay them? 200 grand, 300 grand, something like that? They came out with a document that looked like the LA phone book. And what did you guys do with it? You ignored it. And you averaged the prices. You said, well, it's a lot easier just to take the highest water rate that's being charged in the Front Range and the lowest water rate in the Front Range. You average it together, and those were our water rates. And all of a sudden, it's shell-shock time. Wow, our whole infrastructure is falling apart. Where the heck has our technicians been? Where have you guys been? You're doing a lousy job of managing. And David DeMont, you're accepted from my rant here. You're the exception to this crew. Thank you for your hard work on behalf of the taxpayers. So, I have 22 seconds left. God, I could be up here for hours. Yeah, we've got a lousy team. Based on results, based on hard stats. Can you imagine how old Denver's water infrastructure is? And they kick our ass. We're a relatively new municipality. We should have pretty new stuff. We don't have those old paper wound clay pipes like they do. Yeah, I still have 7 seconds.
No, sir, you're done.
Well, this machine is off then.
It's counting up to how far you are over.
Oh, I apologize.
Kay Famer. Famer, it's on Shaw Boulevard. In case I'm mispronouncing the name.
She had to leave.
Okay. Andrew Ryan. Andra Ryan. Okay, how about Sean Ryan? Okay. Dave Beeman.
Hello, my name is Dave Beeman. I live in the Osage Court, the city of Westminster. First, thank you to Ms. Pinter and Mr. DeMott for returning my email today. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, we are here to strongly protest a proposed water rate increase. The tiered water rates are grossly progressive taxes. There is absolutely no justification for charging some customers 3.5 times higher rates than other customers. We residential customers with 1 acre yards are already paying significantly higher rates than other residential customers and much higher rates than commercial customers. In 2018, we Tier 3 customers paid 2.5 times higher rates than the Tier 1 customers. The proposed 29 and 2020 rates would have us pay 3.25 times higher rates than the Tier 1 customers and 1.65 times higher rates than the commercial customers. There is no ethical or business rationale for these rate differentials. If everyone's rates were the same, we would already pay much more than the current Tier 1 and Tier 2 customers. Since commercial properties make a profit on the water they use, they should pay the highest rates. We don't make profits on our lawns. We're trying to make the city a more desirable place to live, and judging by the growth on the north side of town, it seems to be working. Further, homes on larger lots generally pay much higher property taxes to the city, so we're paying many times more than others. Over the last 10 years, we have already replaced 30% of our sod with rock. In that same time frame, our summer water bills have increased by 4x. 10 years ago, our highest summer water bill was $125. In 2017 and 2018, we've had multiple water bills over $500, despite 30% less grass. And tuning every year. We're constantly checking to make sure there aren't leaks and making sure that everything is optimized. In the 24 years we've lived here, the city has frequently boasted about its senior water rights, the free water we receive from Clear Creek, and the wisdom of our early city founders to acquire those water rights and store that water in Stanley Lake, and how much lower the water costs are here compared to other front-range cities based on those decisions. Those boasts influenced our decision to build our house in Westminster. Since then, we have seen multiple occurrences of poor decisions and bad designs from the water department. 3 to 4 years ago, the entire north side of town had residential water damage due to extremely high water pressure caused by lack of pressure valve redundancies in the system. This design error literally cost us thousands of dollars to replace and repair sprinkler valves and toilets. Millions of dollars were wasted on enhancements to the water treatment plant to produce fertilizer from wastewater when there was no market for that fertilizer. I'm sure you've heard that many times from our former councilor, Bruce Baker. Here are a few more considerations. We did not receive any official notice for this increase. I learned about this increase yesterday from an email from a neighbor of mine. You have not met the notification requirements for this change. If this were in the business world, we would receive volume discounts for subsidizing your infrastructure, not surcharges. If I buy quantity at Costco, I get a lower price per unit. If I buy 100 Apple computers for my business, I get a volume discount. Nowhere else in the real world do volume purchasers get financially penalized like we are being. Third, neither the electric companies nor the gas companies charge such disparate rates. Fourth, even with federal income taxes, the rates vary from 10% to 37%, not 300% like you're charging us. Fifth, between the Quail Hill and Silver Oak subdivisions, we have roughly 75 one-acre lots. We're all paying roughly $2,500 per summer for water. If we were all Tier 1, we'd be paying less than $700. 25 neighbors that were all being overcharged $1,500 per year for water times 75 households, that's over $100,000. You can imagine with that kind of money, we might have something to say about this. I'm sure you've all heard about the big pharma executives who raised their drug prices by a few 100% and the backlash they received in the media. That's exactly what you're doing to us, a 300% surcharge. The Denver Post and other media outlets will have a field day with this story. Thank you for reconsidering this grossly unfair proposal.
Vicky Rancier. Carrie Clark.
Hi, I'm Carrie Clark, and I'm a realtor, and I live in the city of Westminster. I've lived here 14 years, and I'm a native of Colorado, and I grew up in the mountains. So, ditto to all of you. I agree with everything that they said. I also lived in Las Vegas for 14 years, and we need to learn how Las Vegas handles their water. The city water there, they give you money back for turning your front lawn into xeriscaping. I called the water department here and asked, do I get an incentive if I turn my front lawn into xeriscape? Oh, we don't care. We want you to water your grass. Well, I'm trying to save money. This increase, I understand that you have to do infrastructure, but the increase that you're causing doesn't increase my income. I don't get a 20% raise. I lose that money. But you're all right to go ahead and spend it. I have to go and find money. I might have to take a second job because I can't afford it. And other people are going to do the same thing. So reconsider what you're causing. It's going to be a huge domino effect. That's all I have to say.
Mary, and I'm sorry I can't read the last name that was written. Is anybody by the name of Mary still here?
Oh, yeah, here in Mary.
Is that you?
Yeah. Unless there's another Mary in the room.
Well,
Okay.
right now, you're the only one I know of.
Okay. I want to say, first of all, that I have tried to pursue since Thursday the very specifics of what the exact pipes are and where they are that created the emergency. I emailed Max on Thursday, and he did give me the percentages of what you collect from commercial as opposed to residential and the city portion. But there has been, after 40 minutes, not one number given about what the emergency is about. So that sure seems suspect when you have over 200 million in non-determinable investments. You already have the money. I know, I would assume that you know that you have that money. You've got $50 million in dedicated investments that you can't touch. So for you to come up with a story without any specific numbers of what just happened in the last month that forces a 40-minute, very complex new schedule for rate increases, it looks like it stinks because it isn't logical. It is just not logical, okay? Nobody has so far told me what broke or what happened and why we've got to fix it. And you get, as it has been presented by really good fact knowers, including, and I wouldn't have known really any of this without BruceBakerColorado.com and clicking on the article he wrote for Complete Colorado, because he proves, because he's seen this for 4 years as city council member, and I urge people to go there. And we don't look at the effects this is going to have on churches. We've talked about HOAs, but we have churches that have wonderful nurseries that use a lot of water. And, their clothes are washed and cleaned before that parent picks them up and had a break for some spiritual lifting, okay? And so you haven't touched on that, and you haven't justified the rate hike, okay? Now, people can also go to editorials at westward.com. You can put an editorial in the Westminster Window. You can call Kyle Clark on Channel 9 and have him cover this Westminster water fraud system, because it was just a sales approach tonight. It wasn't based on solid facts. And Washington said, you know, a constitution is really only going to work with a moral and honest people. And there's a lot of dishonesty in this. In Boulder, they have used this kind of rate hike because it's similar. What you're doing is similar. It sounds like it comes from the planning office to me, because they have spent a lot of the water money on bike paths, on little seating areas along the river, and other things that took a lot of money and a lot of years to complete. So if you look up United Nations Agenda for the 21st Century, now called Sustainability 2030, you will find that these patterns happen over the country, and this is where they come from. So I suspect maybe some of you have read about this Sustainability 2030 program that wants to take away our cars. Well, now they're taking away our water. Because after 2 years, and in this whole plan you've got, you don't say that you're going to protect from water restrictions next summer. If in case there would be a drought, you would still charge us this kind of amount of money and then put a drought restriction on us. So I called today, I called a lot of businesses. And most of them were too afraid of the consequences, either in maybe a restaurant being, I forgot what they're they have to be inspected all the time. So they didn't want to come up and speak here tonight. And I've called for 3 days to get people to this meeting. And let me tell you, people don't have a clue about it, and either they were going to be here or they would try to be here or whatever it is, but they didn't think you were going to do this. Because I told them that it can actually double people's water. And I have a friend whose bill currently is $477, and she's afraid that it's going to, she can't even afford it. Okay, she lives on about half an acre lawn, and the point is, you're going to put people out of their homes.
Gary Shea.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Mayor Atchison and councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Gary Shea. I live at 3801 West 76th Avenue. There's been quite a bit of concern and discussion in what somebody referred to as Forgotten Westminster, the original part of town where we live. And we've been trying to go over and get as many facts as we can about this. There's a lot of suspicions as to how we got to this point and what exactly caused that. One of the concerns too is maybe deals that have maybe been cut with some of the developers. And as I was going through the agenda memorandum for this evening, and it would be agenda item 10D that I'm referencing, and I'm going to read right from the memorandum here. But this subject is the first reading of Councilor's Bill number 39 regarding a finance agreement with Westminster Station Regeneration LLC for Lot 2, Block 1, Westminster Station filing number 1. And I'm going to jump down to summary statement, the second paragraph. The first of these additional agreements is this proposed financial agreement for the purpose of the city paying the project's water and sewer tap fees in the form of a loan in the amount of $1.5 million, with regeneration to repay the full amount to the city over a 5-year period. So, skip down further, fiscal impact, $1.5 million in the form of a loan for direct payment of water and sewer tap fees due at the time of the building permit issuance. On the second page, then it goes to the key terms of the financial agreement. Now, I'd like to back up just a little bit. I've watched staff's presentation twice, and they did say that the water and sewer tap fees were never waived, that the city never waives them. But this is the optics of this, would have to agree. look quite suspicious, especially when there's citizens here that are suffering a significant increase on that. But when you go to the terms of the financial agreement, so you would hope too that the loan that the city would actually be making better than prime for that. But the terms of the loan, the note shall accrue, this is the second paragraph under key terms of the finance agreement, the note shall accrue interest at a rate of 2.5 per annum. So I'm not really up to date on what the prime rate would be, but I think that that's far below. So the optics are that you're going to increase our fees, but then loan money to a developer with a great rate over a 5-year period. And I guess that's a little bit hard to swallow for most of us. To put this in a little bit more of a personal thing, I didn't realize it tonight. I just realized that that there's a minimum that will be paid now, or that will be charged based on, instead of 1,000 gallons, it'll be a 2,000 gallon minimum. Most of you know that I manage the Westminster Grange Hall day-to-day operations. Westminster Grange became into existence in 1910, 1 year before the city incorporated as the city of Westminster. It's probably one of the oldest buildings in the original part of Westminster. In fact, I'd venture to say that we are probably your longest and most continuous customer for water and sewer since the city's been a city. Anyway, our rate, we don't have any outside water usage. Our rate usually runs about $28. It jumped up to about $32. But now with this minimum increase of minimum 2,000 gallons, without doing anything, but with the stroke of a pen, now our water rates double. So thank you for your time.
I think it's Scott Ireland.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'll be very quick. I wasn't planning to get up here to speak, and I think that others may have made the point that I'd like to make, but I'll hopefully kind of reinforce some of that. I've been a resident of Westminster for 32 years, 22 in my current home. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that in our state, we may not be able to increase taxes without a vote of the public, but our government officials have certainly figured out a way to covertly fee us to death. And this is probably prime example one. I just learned of this yesterday for the first time. I'm on the HOA board in the community in which I live, and sent out an email to the other members of our board, and I believe there's maybe only one on the board that was aware of it. So it's something that many of us are unaware of. We need to do a lot better job of getting the word out. If you're going to try to sneak this in without doing kind of the adequate due diligence of informing your constituency, there'll be a number of you that hopefully won't be sitting in those seats in a year or two from now. The other thing I guess I'd like to point out, I am one of those that live on an oversized, or having an oversized yard. I live on a half-acre lot. It's a home I built 22 years ago, raised my family there. My wife and I are the only ones left out of 5 kids that we raised in that home. Just sent our youngest daughter off to college. And we considered that home to be the place that we'd like to stay and retire in. I'm not that far away from retiring. And I'm looking at it and saying, the $500 water bills that I've had this summer, each month, by the way, June, July, and August, were all about $500 a month. With this rate increase, I'm looking at an $800 a month water bill in the summertime. I mean, that's just, it's crazy. I've got friends, relatives that live in places like Phoenix and Las Vegas that are literally a desert, that, would probably pay a tenth of what I'll be paying, or literally. It doesn't seem right. We need to figure out some way to handle this differently and not be so punitive to those that just because we happen to have a little bit bigger lot doesn't necessarily mean that our pockets are really, really deep and that we can afford it more than more than some of those that may be in an average sized lot. I think it's terribly unfair, and that needs to be corrected. That's all I have. Thanks for your time.
All right, I've exhausted the list of those who signed up. Is there anyone who's in the audience that did not sign up that still would like to speak? Come on up, sir. And since you didn't sign up, I'll need your name and your address, please.
My name is John Morrison, 8190 Bradburn Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, I wasn't planning on talking, but it sounds to me like there's really some poor planning that went on here. And in the beginning of this thing, we had all the planning people up here. And perhaps while they're in Keystone, they can do a little bit better planning. I'm sure that's our dime on them down there. And it sounds to me like there was poor planning up here also, so that's all I have to say.
Okay. Okay, one last call. Has anyone else got any comments they'd like to add? Yes, sir. Come on up, please.
Good evening. My name is John Black, and I'm the HOA president of Wildflower at the Ranch at 119th and Federal. And I just have a question for you all that I don't know what I'm supposed to tell my community when I go back and we have our board meeting, because we just put in hundreds of thousands of dollars to make our community a wonderful, respectable, beautiful place that people want to move into. And now I have to go back and tell them that we're probably going to be billed for a water bill that we're going to have to make an assessment for. And I just don't think it's fair. And I think there's another way that you need to handle this situation. That's all I have to say.
Okay, yes, ma'am. If you've already spoken, that's all.
I can't say anything.
No, ma'am. You've had your opportunity.
Thank you.
Anyone else who has not had an opportunity that still wants to speak? Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
My name's Martha Morrison, 8190 Bradburn Drive. And I'm not afraid to go out to the neighborhood. I did for Dave DeMont and made a difference to let our neighbors know that our city council has a responsibility, and this is what you're responsible for, is to be the supervisor over those that are giving you the information. That means you need to find out if what they're giving you is accurate. That's your job to find out if what they're giving you is the best plan. And it's your job, if they can't do it, to find someone that can. Because you are the ones that are their supervisors. And it is you we put into office. The citizens of Westminster put each one of you in office and believed and trusted that you would do your job. But if your job is driving away part of this community because they can't afford it, then you are failing your job. So I ask you to take the time to do the research from other sources to see if they're really, the people you've hired are really doing the job that you expect of them. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. That will close the citizen comment period. Next item up is a report of city officials. Mr. Andrews.
No reports tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, any comments? Ms. Pinter?
Yeah, the only comment I would make is I had the privilege with Councilor DeMont and Councilor Scully to attend our volunteer appreciation dinner this past week. And I have to say, the citizens of this community really amazed me. And we had many volunteers who came out who we had over 1,000 volunteers last year, and they spend on average 50 hours or more. giving back to their community, and just really humbled by the amount of work that's done in this community to take care of our community and each other. So I know that it's been a really tense meeting, and I thank you guys for sticking it out with us, but I couldn't skip over the opportunity to express gratitude for the generous gifts of our neighbors.
Mr. Demott?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to quickly thank everybody who came out and shared their opinion tonight. I think that this is government. This is how it works. The only way that we can properly represent each of you is to hear from you. So I think that we have a duty to reach out to you. I think it was unfortunate over the last week as I tried to let people know what was going on with the water rates that some of my colleagues thought it was fair to call me a troublemaker and say I'm just stirring the pot to some of you that called them. I think that's an unfortunate thing because my job is to show you what we're doing and make sure that it lines up with what you elected me to do. So I think that's an unfortunate and despicable thing, quite frankly, and ruined my weekend with my family because it very much upsets me. I think I respect everybody up here. I think that they have their best intentions. I think the staff has its best intentions, but so do I. I worked for 4 years through 3 elections to get this position because I care about the citizens of the city that I grew up in. And so thank you each for coming here tonight. Please pay attention to what goes on in these doors because it really, we can at the flick of a pin change things for you as we've talked about tonight.
Ms. Sykes?
So I'm going to talk about something that is not water related, but a different type of water. Our fire department had a wildland team that went down to help with Hurricane Florence. And I just wanted to give a quick up. They are all being demobilized and coming home after quite a bit of service. So the police or the fire chief did send us a note today that the task force has been demobilized. 21 members are flying home. And I'm going to give you some stats on all of the work that they did. Last counted, they assisted 26, evacuated 572, rescued, needed technical rescue of 2 people, sheltered in place 2,368 people. Victims detected that needed medical attention, 17, animal issues, 14, fire incidents, 2, buildings surveyed, 3,580, and they represented the Colorado TFI very well and did an excellent job. So that's all of the different Colorado firefighters that went, and I think that we can all be proud of that level of service and stewardship that goes not just beyond our community, but because these are servant-driven leaders, and so I'm very impressed by this and wanted to give them their acknowledgement. So.
Other comments from council? All right, seeing no other comments, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is a group of routine matters to be acted on with a single motion and vote. We have reviewed this in the pre-meeting. There was no request from any member of council to have any item removed from the consent agenda, and I will now take a motion for the consent agenda. Mr. Demott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City Council adopt consent agenda items 8A through 8C.
Ms. Scully?
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. And let me get to it. There we go. Okay, if you would all use your lights to vote with. Motion's carried on a 6-0 vote. Next item on the agenda is item 10A. Ms. Byrd?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move based on the recommendation of the city manager to determine that the public interest will be best served by approving a negotiated contract with Preferred Strategies LLC for the purchase and implementation of JDE Quick Launch for $69,698 plus $6,970 in contingency for an amount not to exceed $76,668 in expenditures.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Seitz?
Second.
Okay, I have the motion and the second. This is again a vote with your lights. And I'm missing one. Okay, now I'm not. Okay. Motion passes on a 6-0 vote. Next item up is Councilor's Bill number 37. Ms. Seitz?
Mr. Mayor, I move to pass Councilor's Bill number 37 on first reading, implementing water, sewer, and reclaimed water rate adjustments for 2019 and 2020 by amending sections 8-7-1, 8-7-7, 8-7-8, 8-7-9, 8-7-11, 8-8-1, 8-8-5, 8-8-12, 8-12-1, 8-12-7, and 8-12-8 of the Westminster Municipal Code effective January 1st, 2019 and January 1st, 2020 respectively.
Ms. Scully?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by council? Mr. Demott?
I have a couple things. I'll forego questions. I've at nauseum asked questions of the staff, and I thank them for humoring me and getting all the answers that I required. I know, as I've said, I can kind of be a pain in the butt, but this is an important decision we're making, and so I wanted to go through it thoroughly. One of the things that I had asked staff about is I read Councilor Baker's article that he wrote, and so I thought it was fair, since it was brought up, for them to address it. And one of the concerns that I have out of it is we've consistently been told this is about maintaining our current infrastructure. And one of the things that they agreed with out of Councilor Baker's statements was the fact that by design that it correlates with water supply plan to meet future water demands through acquisition. And I know part of that is cost, but it also is saying because we want future demands. And I've heard from, I was supported by multiple different former counselors over generations who I got phone calls for the last couple of weeks saying, how could that be that everything we were told that we're sustainable, this is going to get us through build out. And I think the problem is that we've moved the goalpost in my mind. Build out, yeah, we're trying to sustain build out, but we have to, as a city, decide what build out is. And I have yet to hear a plan that actually meets build out. And we've been told that these increases, they're just a stopgap. They're to maintain an infrastructure that I think we all agree we care about. Water is the most important resource that we have to life. So I don't disagree with that, but what I disagree with is priorities and where is the accountability. One of the things that I've asked for is different options in ways that we could look and pay for some of our needs. And that could be the general fund. I know that's a difficult thing because of Tabor. And I've asked a couple times, and there's been a lot of hesitancy around using that method. But I've been told time and time again, it's possible, just very, very difficult. And one of the things that they pointed out to me were some of the problems that we have with our own charter and the way, that operates, in the way that would match up with us trying to do projects from the general fund. And in 14.6 of the charter, which is titled Utility Finances, I'm going to actually read this. It's the rates and charges for any municipal public utility for furnishing of water, light, heat, power, gas, sewage treatment, and rubbish and garbage disposal shall be so fixed as to at least meet all the operating costs of such utility. There's another paragraph of it, but I think that's the part that really struck me as really it was given to me as why it's one of the hard things for us to be able to do, because of that clause in the charter. So that makes it even more difficult than just Tabor. But if you think about why the people who wrote our charter put that in there, it was because they did not want to burden the citizens who live here, and they wanted to make sure that they had a sustainable utility, which is a great cause. And it's a cause I think that Max and his team are trying to carry out. What I think that we've missed in my mind is we've changed the goalpost. So now we're trying to make it sustainable for growth that it can't currently sustain in my mind. And that's my concern. I know we've been told this isn't about growth, but there is a growth component of it, whether that's future growth or growth that we allowed to happen so fast that the system can't keep up. And I know this doesn't have to do with the moratorium, but I, as a council person, having to go and do an emergency moratorium, which I was very uncomfortable with, I have some hesitancy after that. I feel like we need to step back, we need to look at this again, and look at other options. And that is my opinion of this. I think the other portion that really strikes me, so we don't end up continuing down this road, and I have yet to hear that, I think it's disappointing that, and I know that he had his trip planned, but in my mind, this was important enough that Don Tripp should be here tonight. And I'm disappointed that he is not. And maybe my colleagues don't share that sentiment, but I am disappointed in that. And I know in the past, city managers have canceled trips when there are important things that come up. The last point I would make before voting no on this, because I will not vote yes on this, is we talk about equity. We constantly talk about equity and sustainability on this council, and it's a goal of ours. Equability means for everybody. Equability doesn't mean that these people can't afford enough, so we need to tax these people who work their keister off their whole life to have what they have. I understand taking care of people who have less. I work for multiple boards and nonprofits. I give a lot of my own time and money to good causes, but I decide to do that. Government doesn't decide for me to do that for me. And so I think that they should not be penalized for that. So that's why I will be voting no on this.
Other comments from council?
I actually was hoping staff might be able to present me with a little bit of information. I did listen to some of the concerns and questions from the audience, and I think it would be appropriate for us to answer them if staff is capable at this time. Is that all right?
I'll ask a question then.
So one of the things that I kept hearing was how high our water rate increases are, or our water rates are just in general compared to all of the other communities in the Front Range. And I'd like to get I'd like a validation. Is that a true statement? Do we know exactly what other communities are paying and where we fall in line on that?
If you'll give us a moment to call the slide up.
Absolutely.
We do have a slide that represents exactly what you're asking for.
As you're getting that slide ready, let me tell you another question I have. There was a remark saying there hasn't been any documentation as to what this is going for. And I know when you presented to us in the past, you showed us a breakdown. I believe a certain percentage was for the reservoir, and you gave a dollar amount with it, kind of breaking it down in rough categories. If you could also find that slide, if it's possible, that might be helpful as well.
A slide of the list of projects.
Yeah, maybe it was in a
I do not
staff
have
report.
I do not have that slide. I don't have a slide. It is printed in the staff report that you received a few weeks ago on the capital improvement project program list. I can read it to you if that would help.
That would help.
But I do not have a slide.
Well, okay, that's fine. If you don't have a slide, if you could just read it. I think that's a valid question. What is this specifically going to, or is it
Okay.
just nebulous? We're keeping the money.
We'll we have. Can I go back to your first question?
Yes, please.
Slide is up. We'll show you this slide, and then there's a second slide. This is a slide that council has seen numerous times. In fact, it's a very similar slide with updated information that you have seen over the last several biennial budget submissions. This is not new. We didn't put this together a week ago. This is known, verifiable information. What this slide shows, these are as it pertains to rates. This slide shows a comparison to our neighbor cities or districts along the Front Range. And it shows, again, what that average bill is. Both in Westminster, you see it's a cross-hatched column. $865 in 2018 is the average water bill for a year.
What was 2019?
Am I addressing
You're
council?
addressing us.
Okay.
To answer the question.
So you can see what the average is. It's about 1,000, and you can see those that are above and below Westminster. That's the 2018 rate as it is today. The next slide, what we did here is we put what the 2019 average would be on that exact same slide. In other words, we put our 2019 rate recommendation and compared it to where will we fall on that same slide with other cities using their 2018 information. That's the best we can do because I don't know what they're intending to do in 2019. But when we compare what that average rate rate would be for a year, we are now at $1,100 for the average Westminster customer, which is now $100 more than the 2018 average. As soon as we're able to obtain information about what all of those entities, cities and districts are doing or intend to do or councils have approved for for any 2019 increases, we will obviously provide you that, just like we always have. But this is what our 2019 rate increase for the average resident would be compared to 2018 data.
Thank you. Can you answer my second question about the specific projects that we'll be going towards, and reiterating which one is, to be honest and fair, related to growth, and which ones are more repair and replacement of our existing infrastructure?
Would you like me to read the entire list? I will do it.
Go ahead and read it, Mike.
I think it would be, it's been asked for, and I think it's a good as time of any.
Okay, I'm going to read it exactly. It appears in the I'm reading it right out of the August 27th agenda. So anybody who wishes to look at that now or later, there are multiple parts to it. There's a single list that I'm going to read, and then for every single project that's listed, there is a summary statement describing every one of those projects, because I realize the titles may be difficult.
Max, if you would give me a moment, we can pull up the information from the web where the budget document is posted.
Okay.
I can pull that up very quickly.
That would be easier.
That would be great. I apologize. In the meantime, I'm going to forecast two other questions that I'm going to have. One is in regards, we've just recently had budget talks, and so I know there was a lot of conversation in this room that we have the highest sales tax. So I'd like to show a slide that shows where we're at sales tax wise compared to our other communities. And then I'd also like to look at our property tax compared to other communities. If we could pull up either of those slides, that would be helpful. I apologize for the delay, everyone. I'm sorry. Thank you. while they're looking that up, am I able to address that? I'll ask you questions and you can see the appropriate staff. Okay.
See if they can get to what you're looking for.
So there's been a couple of comments, both from, I believe, the audience tonight, and then also from Councilor Demont, that we should be using the general fund to help lower and the cost burden here. And my understanding is our general fund CIP, we do it pay as you go. And we, just having our budget discussions, we are already really constrained on what our needs are and what we're able to pay for. For instance, I believe I remember being told that we had about $10 million of road maintenance needs, but only were able to dedicate $5 million to that. Is it staff's position that there are existing needs in the general fund and that there is the highest and best use of those dollars stays within that general CIP, or do we feel there's an avenue to fund this within the Tabor limits and charter limits that we have?
As for the comment about the infrastructure specifically to roads, yes, we have a recent study that has identified that we need on average $10 million a year to reinvest in our street structure. We are averaging between $4 to $5 million a year between our operating and our CIP program. So yes, we are continuing to identify more funding to reallocate towards that and to reinvest in the infrastructure, but no, we are not meeting the $10 million a year at this time.
Okay. For my second question, is it staff's recommendation at this time that general fund dollars, that there is a possibility for general fund dollars to be used for public works CIP, or is that money best served in the general fund because of these types of needs within our general fund CIP?
Staff does not recommend reallocating funds from the general fund to the utility fund, whether it is doing those projects in the general fund and transfer them or whatever kind of scenario of that nature. There are significant needs in the general fund operations between facilities, the roads, the bridges, those basic infrastructure requirements within the general fund. And at this time, we do not recommend. Plus, the reality is once you kind of create that subsidy, it is very difficult to take it away.
Thank you.
Go back to your first question.
Thank
Max,
you.
if guys
Sorry.
ready. Sorry. Are you at a point where you can find what you're looking for? Can you scroll for me? No, that's what I'm waiting to see if we got.
These are the exact pages that were out of the August 27th list of CIP projects to address. One of the comments I heard earlier is, or several comments from citizens, what is the emergency? These don't reflect an emergency. This reflects an ongoing and constant need to take care of what we own. This didn't just crop up last week. It didn't crop up last month. We've been providing papers to council for the last 10 months that have led us to this evening to describe where we are. But as Barbara Opie said, as a pay-as-you-go system on capital improvements, we do have reserve funds. We have reserve funds that are set aside to pay capital project reserve for true emergencies that do occur during construction, and we have a rate stabilization reserve that we use that can account for things like it's a wet year, it's a dry year, more use, less use. But there isn't a reserve, there is no set-aside reserve, and there is no profit that the utility holds and is not spending. All of that money is factored in and goes into to pay for projects as we present them to you to be the greatest need in that 2-year budget period. And that's what we present to you each of the 2 years. I could speak to any one of these in specific if you wish. The two greatest maybe I'll do it this way. The two greatest expenses that you see on there is Water 2025 with a $56 million estimate in there for 2019. That pays for the next phase of work, moving us toward a replacement water plant. I provided to council a very detailed answer over the weekend as to how that money is and has been and will be spent. The phase that we're in 2018 is a site selection phase. Mr. Fittis, if he's still here, he sits on the community working group portion of that effort that will hopefully in the next couple of months lead to a recommendation that we bring to council for a site selection where to build that plant. In 2019, we have accounted for funding to cover the first portions of planning and design. It accounts for the potential, not knowing where that site is yet. It includes an amount for land acquisition. That includes not only land acquisition as to where the plant is built, but there will also be inevitably a large number of easements that would be necessary to be able to move water to and from that location. It also includes, like any responsible utility would do, a pilot study program in which we're able to look at one or more potential technologies and evaluate them in a live situation. That's called pilot testing. Assuming we can get to a point of selection of a methodology, a technology, it would then include some money to begin the planning and design efforts. So that's where that $56 million price tag goes. On the wastewater side, the biggest item that you see in there is $33,850,000. This for Big Dry Creek, the interceptor sewer repair and restoration, as well as a capacity increase. This is the project that we originally had slated for construction spending in years 2022 and 2023. As you know, related to the moratorium, the rate of construction over the last several years has caused us to move that construction funding forward. So where you see it here is part of that bond issuance. That money would be available as in 2019, and as soon as we're able to and have the proper project identified and how we're going to proceed in detail, that's where that money would be spent. If there are any other specific items on there that I could address, I would be happy to do so.
All right, I'm going to ask you to pause for a minute. By our council rules, we must adjourn at 10:30. Unless the motion is made and accepted by all the council to continue this, and we will continue for a set period of time. At this point, I'm going to ask the council to consider a motion to extend the meeting 1 hour.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Mr. Frankel, you'll record that we are at 10:20. We have extended the council meeting. And that includes all remaining items. Hopefully, if we can get through that in an hour.
Okay.
All right, Max, go ahead and finish.
I don't think we need to go through each one. I do want the public to know that this is readily available. I believe they said it was August 27th. And if there's specific questions, you can always reach out to council on what those items are. But I appreciate you bringing this up. I didn't want.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize the top, on the way it's displayed, the top part of it was on the previous page. Just to point out the one item that I mentioned in the original presentation, the one item that is in fact growth related is that top line item, comprehensive water supply plan objectives, $8.5 million. $7 million of that is the payment that I mentioned is required by the end of December 2019. That will get us upwards of 2,800 acre feet in a gravel lake in Wattenberg. That's been that has been a key part of the water supply plan here for a very long period of time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there any opportunity to look at the other slides that I requested and go far?
Do we need to switch back? And can you tell me again, what would you like to see?
And this might be more of a CMO, but I was looking for our sales tax in comparison to all of our regional neighbors, all the other communities, and then also the property tax.
Councilor Sites, here's our sales and tax rates as compared to our front range comparison cities.
Mm-hmm. So,
Chris, hang on. It's not up on everybody's. Like,
can you guys see it? I can see it, but can you not?
you can see it. Now I got it. I just got
Okay.
it. Okay. Now we got it. About half the screens were black. Go ahead.
Okay.
Would you like me to switch over to property tax?
Well, no, I just think it's important to note that the general fund is actually 3%, which is in line with the lowest, but we have a separate post in public safety that raises us a bit higher that were voted on by the people, one for our open space and one for our public safety. So it could also then show our property tax. Do you know, are there any other communities that have as low of a property tax as us? Does anyone come close?
So these are our peer comparison cities.
Mhm.
We are the lowest. I can't speak to any of the cities beyond this list.
But not even the lowest, like significantly lower compared to North Glen, Broomfield, like.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So I appreciate us going through and just kind of, I think reasonable people can disagree, and particularly this is something that's going to hurt. This is coming out of our pocketbooks. I have a large lot, and we're a single income family. I have 3 kids. I have a bigger home. I chose to stay home with my kids, so this is my choice to not have a lot of fat in our budget. So I know what it's like firsthand to scrimp to make make ends meet. Our air conditioning went out 2 years ago. We have chosen not to fix it because we don't have that extra type of budget. So I don't want to have anyone leave here feeling that you weren't heard or we don't care that this is going to cost more. In fact, this is a council that really wants to focus on making sure that people can have a high quality of life that's within their means. So I do want to say that. That said, I feel like there is some misinformation. I keep hearing that this is a product of poor planning, but this was actually a product of having a new director of public works and utilities who wanted to make sure that our water rates were appropriate and that we really understood what our ongoing liabilities were for our infrastructure. And so 2 years ago, we embarked on a long-term study. And my understanding, I know Councilor Baker mentioned that we had 2 previous studies. My recollection, I believe there hadn't been a study since 2006 that was this level of in-depth analysis on the actual condition of our infrastructure. And so after looking at the actual condition, a list was prioritized. I heard a lot of people talking about priorities. A list of what was most critical was prioritized. We did hear that 25% of our infrastructure is past its expected life expectancy. So probably hard choices. Even this rate increase probably communicates some hard choices that were made. And so I don't think anyone runs a political PR campaign by raising fees or rates. I think that it's one of the hardest things to do is ask all of us to pitch in together to invest in our community so that we have safe, reliable drinking water, our kids have safe, reliable drinking water, and our grandkids have safe, reliable drinking water. I believe the way staff has recommended financing this by bonding it so that there's intergenerational equity, that we're not all paying for it right now up front, but we're actually spacing it out so the new people that move into Westminster are paying for this as well, that it's not just all on our backs, is really appropriate and equitable. Anil Mathai was here earlier, and he mentioned that he had an MBA, and then he also mentioned that he is a chemical engineer. I'm not a chemical engineer, but I do have my undergraduate in nurse sciences. Chemistry was a good chunk of that. And then I do have my MBA as well. And I went to Regis, and they are very focused on service leadership. And so we had to do capstones on shared value, doing profit in an area that typically nonprofits work in, right? Because profit's infinitely scalable, and you can really solve problems that way if you allow the market to be part of it. I chose to do my capstone on providing healthcare to base of the pyramid poor in India. And it was really startling. I did not know that in our world, 6,000 children die every day from water-related diseases. I apologize that this is graphic, but 4 billion cases of diarrhea occur, which cause 2.2 million deaths annually. And most of those are children under the age of 5. After taking that class and doing the research, I was so grateful to live in this country that when I turn on my tap, it's effortless. It's without worry. I don't think about, are my kids going to contract a deadly disease? And then a year later, we had Flint, Michigan. And I realized I shouldn't be so smug. We have safe drinking water because of decisions that people have made over a long period of time. And these are not easy decisions. I know it's late and I apologize. But I do want to say I'm going to be voting yes tonight. And I wish there was a way that we could have the repairs we need and for it not to cost money. But this was not something that snuck up on us. We've been doing the planning, we've been vetting this, we've been asking the question, and staff has consistently been making reports to us. I hear you that we need to work on our outreach and be more transparent, and we will do that. But I will be voting yes tonight. I am sorry to disappoint you. I have to do what I think is best for the city in the long term, and to me, that's the most important part of my job, is providing core services.
Mr. DeMont.
I just want to quickly point out a couple things. Priorities is something that's been brought up time and time again. I have never once disagreed with the priorities laid out by our utility department. What I have disagreed with is how we pay for those things. What I've disagreed with is the priorities that we put on our funds. And what I asked for is even in a way that would be a drop in the bucket and may not make a big difference in your rate, is could we dip in to a place in the general fund and pay for some of these things? Priorities. Priority is water. Priority is our streets. Priority is our police, our fire. Our parks are nice to have. We don't have to have nice parks. The citizens here choose to, but at the end of the day, they don't sustain life. This sustains life. And so either we prioritize it or we don't. We can't continually go down this path of putting this on the ratepayers' back. I don't have an MBA. I dropped out of high school, I got my GED, I went to college, and I taught college. I worked my butt off, like many of you do, and I know you don't need an MBA to know whether or not you can afford this water bill. That is the problem I have with it, not priorities. I have the same priority. Take care of the water infrastructure. Make sure we have clean drinking water. I've been accused of theatrics through this whole thing, bringing up places where are in dangerous water situations that we are in. We are not in those places because we've cared for these priorities. And I want to see us continue to care for those priorities.
Ms. Byrd.
So thank you all for sticking out with us this late and for coming to share your concerns. I also, we've been receiving staff presentations for several months and been studying this, and really I think staff has done a remarkable job with its planning assessment. And I want you to know this is a very hard vote. On the one hand, what's being proposed is expensive, and there will be hardships and impacts on people. And I know that. I too have a large lot. We're a tier 3 user of water, and we will be impacted. So I'm with you, and whatever I'm voting on tonight, I will be paying right along with you. So, and there are legitimate concerns about how this will affect even the most vulnerable in our community. On the other hand, there's arguably no more important service that our city provides to its citizens than safe, clean, reliable drinking water. We simply can't live without it. And beyond this, as taxpayers, we already have a $4 billion investment in all of our infrastructure that supports our water services. And that $4 billion water infrastructure needs to be maintained. So we're not in crisis. I know there were several people who thought that maybe this is all being presented because there's a crisis. No, this is what needs to be invested to maintain an asset that for over the generations this has been invested in for our citizens. So as people, varying years, we've moved into this city. Some of us have been here much longer than others, but each one of us has come into a city that has had safe, clean, high quality, reliable drinking water made available to us. And that's something that we have an obligation to pay for and to maintain. So to do any less, honestly, is to allow the infrastructure to degrade and to cost us even more down the road. And I won't do that to my citizens. I won't kick the can down the road. Honestly, it would be great to find a reason not to do this, to say I disagreed with how we were going to pay for it. But at the end of the day, we need to make the investment and pay for our asset so that we have a continued ability to have safe, clean, reliable drinking water. So at any rate, not only does it make this more expensive later, just as it is with house maintenance, car maintenance, it also puts us at risk for catastrophic failure down the road. Then we would have a crisis. And that's something that I won't leave to you. I'm going to do my job tonight. I'm going to take care of your water infrastructure. There are no easy choices. I wish there was an easy way to duck out of this one. But I'm going to be voting yes, and that's because I care about all of our water. I care about our public health, safety, and welfare, and I'll be supporting this.
Ms. Pinter?
Yes, I just had to concur. You've heard from our staff the list, and if you have any questions to look at the critical infrastructure needs. It was raised, and I tried to take notes on what everyone said. There was a lot of talk about I think Don Fiddles even said that this is robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and this is kicking the can down the road. And I honestly feel it's frankly the opposite, that this is us taking accountability for taking care of our infrastructure in a really public way. And John and Martha, I think that you guys had some really compelling comments. I took notes, and you were talking about how we need to have good planning and we need to have detailed planning. In particular, Martha, you said something that stuck out to me, and I feel like it's exactly the reason why I have to vote yes. You said that we need to make sure that it's our job to hire people and to supervise people who give us accurate information. I don't want city staff who just tell me everything's going to be okay. I want city staff who tell me when 25% of our infrastructure is beyond its useful life. I want them to be honest, I want them to be clear, and I want to back up their answers with detailed information. There are hundreds of pages documenting this infrastructure need, and I am happy to share links with anyone who can't find it. It's a big website. I get it. We have a lot of agendas. So if you need to email one of us to get a list of those infrastructure priorities, I'm sure anyone on this council would be happy to do so. But I have to tell you, the cost of failure here is really a public health crisis. This is important, and this is critical. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for all of your questions and comments and concerns. This is very serious, and I'm glad that you two are sharing your serious concerns.
Ms. Scully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to concur with Councilor Seitz, Councilor Byrd, and Councilor Pinter tonight. And I really liked what Councilor Pinter said here on the end. This is a public crisis. If we let this go, we will be in trouble, and we can't let it go. So we're taking the high road, the hard road, and we're going to make decisions that will make sure that we're thinking ahead, and we're thinking about build out, and we're thinking down the road. I don't want to be kicking that can down the road either. I'm happy about a rate increase. I don't want to vote for a rate increase, but I don't see another option. this is the situation we have. We have to deal with it, and we're going to do what's right.
Any other comments from the council members? I would tell you that we've spent a lot of time with this. This is not the first night. This is the second night that we've had public comment. And for the opportunity to have sat here through a number of years, we have continually tried to make sure that our system is compatible with the requirements and delivers what we have. But you can't keep relying on systems that are at 25% of your expansion of their lifetime. Some of the systems we saw just this past year, multiple breaks across the city of a system that took a hit, and we were doing more repairs in a short couple of months than we do in a typical average year. These are the kind of systems that are in the ground. We've got some systems that have been in the ground since the early 70s, and we still haven't replaced all of them. Those systems have to be maintained, and we have to make sure that they deliver. Not only do they get water and sewer to your homes, but there's a health issue and there's a legal issue required that we have to deliver quality product to you. And we have to provide a service that's safe. Nobody wants to raise rates just for the heck of raising rates, because if there's not justification, we don't do it. But in this case, I think the staff has brought forward what we have been asking for. They've given us as much information as they can. We've got to make that decision. And it's not necessarily going to be a popular decision, but that's why we're here. We're making the decision. So whichever way this goes tonight, this is not done in a vacuum. It's looked at a long, hard road of what we've got doing, the information we've been presented, and we reviewed it multiple times, trying to find alternatives. What we're left with is what's before us tonight. Any other comments from council? If not, this is a roll call vote. Ms. Parker, if you would, please.
Atchison.
Yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Demott.
No.
Pinter.
Yes.
Seitz.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Motion passes on a 5-1 vote. Next item is moving to Council's Bill number 38. Ms. Seitz?
Mr. Mayor, I move to pass Councilor's Bill number 38 on first reading, implementing water, wastewater, and reclaimed tap fee adjustments for 2019 and 2020 by amending sections 8-7-1, 8-7-3, 8-7-4, 8-7-5, and 8-8-5 of the Westminster Municipal Code effective January 1st, 2019 and January 1st, 2020 respectively.
Ms. Scully?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by council? Seeing none, this is also a roll call vote. Ms. Parker?
Bird.
Yes.
Demott.
No.
Pinter.
Yes.
Seitz.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes. Motion also passes on a 5-1 vote. Next item on the agenda is Council's Bill number 39. And Ms. Scully.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to pass Councilor's Bill number 39 on first reading, authorizing the city manager to execute a finance agreement with Westminster Station Regeneration LLC in substantially the same form as presented to the council for the development of Lot 2, Block 1, Westminster Station, filing number 1.
Do we have a second? We can't move forward without a second, even for discussion or to vote on it.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Demott, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Mr. Demott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I originally had questions, but I'm going to defer my questions. I will be voting no on this in light of the increase that we're putting on our residents. I can't, in good conscience, lend money out to a developer knowing that we just raised the rates on our citizens.
Okay, Ms. Seitz?
I was going to ask if staff could just present us with their case for why they think this makes sense, what the public value is, and why we would be loaning money, because I think that was a fair question that was brought up by a resident earlier.
How's
Ms.
that?
Raffin, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and councilors. So to be clear, in light of the conversations tonight, this project is not requesting any deviation from standard fees, be they tap fees or rate increases. This is really a matter of whether or not council wishes to proceed with providing developer assistance on this project. We have provided updates to council periodically over the last 2 years as we have worked with this developer, Regeneration Westminster Station LLC, to move forward on this project. It would be the first market rate housing in the Westminster Station TOD area. We think that's an important catalyst for redevelopment of that area. As we have talked about a number of times, there's a great importance for a balanced housing approach throughout the southern portion of the city. The Westminster Station TOD is part of that. So this is an important project for advancing that diversity in housing. But in addition, it's a mixed-use project, so it would provide about 14,000 square feet in this first phase of development of ground floor commercial tenant space. They have been working very closely with local businesses to be those first tenants, so that's also an important aspect of business development for this area. It would eventually provide sales tax revenue off of those businesses, but it is also providing revenue into the general improvement district that was established for this area.
Ms. Pinter.
Yes, I don't have a question, Jenny. I just want to say thank you. We heard many comments earlier this evening during the public section that talked about, in their words, the forgotten section of Westminster. And I think this is a critical piece of reinvestment, highlighting locally owned businesses and something that's community-minded after extensive public input. We've been championing this for years at this point. So thank you.
And can I ask one follow-up question? So maybe this is obvious to everyone, maybe it's not, but the reason that we're loaning them this money is because we never waive tap fees.
Correct.
For any, whether it's affordable housing for anything. It is so important that we have the integrity of that enterprise fund, that even if we have a development that we want, we will loan them the money, which comes out of one fund and goes into that enterprise fund to make sure that it's not unduly burdening the ratepayers.
That's correct. We've been clear with this developer from the beginnings of our negotiations that we are never able to waive water and sewer tap fees. That being said, they do represent a significant cost on the front end of any project. And so this is an effort on the part of city staff to assist them in moving the development forward and ensuring that we will receive a return on that in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that this is an investment in the historic southern portion of our town. It is an area that I know that there is frustration from many residents, so thank you for getting market rate and retail options there. And I really appreciate this approach that is not a sales tax rebate of existing money, but rather incenting new investment. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Demott.
I just find it ironic that we want the utility to fully fund itself, but somebody's development at marketplace housing that obviously can't sustain itself, we're going to lend $1.5 million to.
Other comments? We have a motion and a second. The comments are complete. We are at a roll call vote for Councilor's Bill number 39. Ms. Parker?
Demott.
No.
Pinter. Yes. Seitz. Yes. Scully.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Motion carries on a 5-1 vote. Next item, adoption of resolution number 24. Back there, Ms. Sykes.
Thank you. I keep forgetting to turn off my my light,
I have
so
others in there.
I can do it. I promise I'll let other people make motions. I move to adopt resolution number 24, authorizing the city manager to accept Denver Regional Council of Governments grant funding to construct quiet zones at the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway crossing of Lowell Boulevard, West 72nd Avenue, and Bradburn Boulevard.
Ms. Scully.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by council?
I'll just say this is something that our residents have been asking for a long time to enhance the quiet zone, so I'm really excited to see this move forward.
And the only caveat to that is we just have to convince Burlington Northern to go do the work. Because we're certainly funding it, but getting them to commit to when they will do it is another issue.
One of these years, we'll get them to be a good neighbor.
We'll see. Always the optimist.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, this is also a roll call vote. Ms. Parker?
Pinter. Yes. Sights.
Yes.
Scully.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Demott.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries on a 6-0 vote. Next item up is resolution number 25. Ms. Pinter?
Yes, move to adopt resolution number 25, authorizing city council to formally adopt the city's hazard mitigation plan as approved by the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
Mr. Demott?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by council?
Just a quick comment that this is much needed. We're very grateful to have it, and this is a critical component working in collaboration both with internal city departments and FEMA and the federal agencies to make sure that we have plans of this type. So thank you.
Mr. Demott, do you have a comment? No. Okay. Ms. Sykes, did you have a comment?
I do have a comment. I just would be remiss if I didn't say that I was at a statewide symposium where this plan, as it was being developed, was used as the best example nationwide by a federal agency and wanting to make it available as a model for other communities. We do have the gentleman who's responsible, the main author and architect of that, and that is Greg Moser. So thank you for your work and thank you for making us look good.
Any other comments by council? If not, this is a roll call vote. Ms. Parker?
Sights. Yes. Scully.
Yes.
Atchison.
Yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Demott.
Yes.
Pinter. Yes.
Motion carries on a 6-0 vote. Next item is item 10G. Ms. Scully?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move based upon the recommendation of the city manager to determine that the public interest will best be served by authorizing the sole source purchase of software, maintenance and implementation in late 2018 with Cobblestone Systems Contract Insight Enterprise Software and solicitation / e-sourcing module for procurement for an amount not to exceed $132,430 in expenditures including contingency.
Ms. Pinter?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or comments from council? Hearing none. This is a vote with your button, please. Motion is carried on a 6-0 vote. Next item is item 10H. Ms. Bird?
I move based on the recommendation of the city manager that the city council finds the public interest will be best served by a negotiated contract with Keller Rohrbach LLP to provide legal services in pursuing claims for damages and injunctive relief against pharmaceutical companies and/or distributors of prescription opioids.
Ms. Scully?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Pinter?
Yes, just a quick comment. This is a critical piece of other efforts by the city to combat the opioid crisis that is brewing not only in our community but across the country. This, in collaboration with some of the things we've seen by our officers and by Tri-County Health and our own staff to work on this really complex issue. I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with this litigation as a key component in that effort.
Any other comments by council? Seeing none, please use your vote. Okay, motion carries on a 6-0 vote. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the business of the Westminster City Council. It's approximately 10:55. We had scheduled a meeting and executive session with the WIDA board. That meeting has been postponed but due to the lateness of the hour. We will do that as a part of our agenda for next Monday. The remaining item for tonight for the council is a executive session on a personnel matter to discuss the evaluation of the city attorney. We will take a short pause and then